Good morning. You can see the cup raise tonight. It's 1 billion degrees in this room, as it always is, early in the mornings. So, to the YouTube, I'm not sweating. I'm not sweating right now. But you never know. By the end of this segment, it's possible. A lot of fun stuff to get to. Jeremy and Joe here on WGR. Jeremy, 8 to 10 today, so have him in a couple of hours. Joe Yerdon at 9 o'clock a little bit later on today's show. We'll talk some hockey with him. And, yeah, it's the summer. It feels like the summer, for sure. How's everybody doing this morning? We're doing good. The cup could be raised tonight, so we have that going for us. And I want to talk some hockey a little bit later on this morning. I was driving in, though, thinking about that. Like, I got a nice Sabres topic lined up for today's show, and I'm thinking as I'm driving in, like, do I really want to do that to people? Do I really want to do that to people? What would be the most fun thing to talk about in sports right now? Because it wouldn't be the Sabres, I don't think. Maybe there's a spin we could put on that would make it so, but it's not them.
The first no-hitter in college baseball World Series in 60 years happened yesterday.
Was that? Okay, I saw, who was it? It's one of the Dan Patrick Show guys that always tweets this out, like, college whatever, ESPN2, get to it now. And I guess I clearly didn't put it on because I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, Gage Wood of Arkansas threw the third no-hitter in men's college World Series history.
Okay.
First one in 60 years.
All right, well, we got that. You guys are like decent soccer fans, right? Would you call yourself hardcore soccer fans? No? Josh, you are for Everton.
Yeah.
I know that.
And the U.S. national team when they decide to show up.
I watch a bit. I don't always watch a ton.
Question. This Club World Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup that started yesterday, are we going to care about that? Like, we care about the FIFA World Cup when that comes around every 4 years by a lot. We totally care about that. Everybody cares about the World Cup. Even if you're not a soccer fan, I feel like that's where you might care, right? You might just watch the U.S. games, or maybe you'll watch more than that, whatever. Here's the Club World Cup, which is taking place in Miami. You have teams from the U.S. You have some of the big English teams. Liverpool's not there. But you have some of the big English teams. But I don't know, is the tournament a joke? There's a lot of teams there, a lot of top players. Messi's playing.
Well, let me see if this scoreline answers that question for you. Bayern Munich played Auckland City and
from New Zealand?
Yeah, and beat them 10-0.
Okay, well there you go.
Their opening game.
Well, that might be an answer to our question, right? Why are we throwing teams from around the world into the cauldron with the European superpowers that are just going to destroy them all? 10-0. Yeah. There wasn't a mercy rule.
Probably not.
There probably should have been a mercy rule of to some extent.
Each of these groups has like a top team. Like one group has a bunch of random teams, and then Real Madrid. Another group has a bunch of. Well, this one actually has Juventus and Manchester City, which that one could be kind of good. But like, I feel like we're going to be looking at this in like a few weeks and say, okay, well, here's all the top teams. They're just basically doing the Champions League.
So maybe right now we don't care, but maybe. Right, but even then, when we get to that point, it's like, well, we just had the Champions League. Why do I need this also? So okay, well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'm skeptical of that succeeding. The idea makes sense, right? Like the Club World Cup. Why not? But I just don't know that all the teams around the world are gonna stack up. Before we get to some hockey, the NBA Finals last night, I do just want to say that I think both of these series have been awesome. That you've had close games, you have close series, you didn't get a sweep, you haven't had a 5-game whatever. I mean, that was the worry for the NBA Finals more than the Stanley Cup Final. I don't think many thought Oilers and Panthers would be a quick series. I think most thought that's going to go the distance. That's going to be back and forth. It's going to be contested. It's going to be physical. This series, though, the Thunder and the Pacers has lived up to the hype. I mean, the Thunder, I think, are still going to win it and probably win it here in 6. But I mean, that was built up to be just a slaughter. Like, it's going to be quick and over. It'll be the Pacers just looking totally outmatched. And even, I mean, if you watch that game last night, Halliburton and the Pacers, like, Halliburton had a tough game, only 4 points, as you heard Josh say in the update. But they've been able to compete. The games have been close. All but one of them really has been close. They should have won Game 4, and that would have put them up 3-1. I mean, they really were half a quarter away of not missing like 10 shots in a row from being up 3-1. And now they're probably going to lose the series, but it's been a good one, and they've put up a good enough fight to make it entertaining. The other thing I had to think of last night about that game and that series, and tell me if this reminds you of anybody in another sport, because I'm sure there are going to be examples of this, but when I watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he is the NBA's MVP. Breakout superstar. He's been a star in the league, but like superstar ascension this year, probably going to win the title, and when they win the title, he's going to win Finals MVP. I think it's pretty rare company, by the way, to win NBA MVP and Finals MVP in the same year. Like, I don't think that often happens. So, if he wins the title, or if he even doesn't, I think more people have gotten to see him this season than any before just being in the finals. I can't watch the guy. I got into this with Sal a couple of weeks ago. Like, I simply have trouble. There was a 3-minute during the game explanation that ESPN was doing with Mike Breen and Doris Burke, and I forget who's the third voice on that broadcast. Is it Richard Jefferson? Might be Richard Jefferson. They're having a discussion about SGA and push-offs and how every shot looks like a push-off, and they showed an example of the big shot he hit in Game 4, which was clearly a push-off. They even said, I think Jefferson said on the broadcast, like, that's a push-off, that's an offensive foul, but here's why they don't call it, and giving you the defense for why they don't call it. I feel like this guy has a cheat code a little bit. He's figured out the rules. And what are the examples of that in sports where a team has figured out, the Thunder are kind of doing this overall, where they just follow you so often they know it's not going to get called all the time. What are the examples in sports of the guy or the team knows the way around the rule? You know, like they know they're winning. This sounds like I'm taking all credit away from him, and I don't mean to be doing that. But they're winning in some part because they're playing off the rule book better than you are. This guy is just hovering around the line on, I could just shove a guy with my stiff arm. He's Derrick Henry out there. Stiff arm a guy on every single shot just to create that little bit of space, and now I have an open shot. You know, I'm thinking of the Seahawks a little bit for this when they won their Super Bowl. They would hold on every play. Defensively, specifically, like in coverage, the Seahawks held all the time, but they knew the refs aren't going to call it every play. And if we're not egregious about it, you know, they almost, I think maybe this is true, they taught their players how to hold without getting called. And it worked. Their defense was unbelievable, and it did, I think, gave them an advantage. Thinking about the Devils a little bit in the early 2000s with, you know, not the trap, but obstruction and, you know, hooking and interference. Not that they were the only ones weren't the only ones doing that, but, you know, they're doing things that are, by the letter of the law, illegal, but they have figured out what the line is to be able to go right up to it and gain an advantage that way. A little bit of, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I guess without, saying they're taking steroids or anything of the sort, because if that's a little bit more different style of cheating. But that's kind of how I feel about this Thunder team. I don't know about an individual star, though. Who's the guy that found the hack in sports? Because that's what I feel like this guy has figured. He found the life hack of, I just give him a little shove as long as I'm not throwing him to the ground, although he did do that in Game 4 and they still didn't call it. But as long as I'm not tomahawking him, choke slamming the guy to the ground, they're not going to call me on it. That's what I feel like this guy's figured out to some extent. So maybe you're able to watch it and not notice it or not care about it, but I have a tough time. I have a real tough time watching him and seeing how successful they are. Good one from Bill, who just wrote in, Jawan Taylor of the Chiefs, who false starts on every single play. That's a good one. Because although he's not even really that good with that advantage. And also, he's the number one criminal of that. Don't we kind of feel like now all offensive tackles are leaving like a hair early? Lane Johnson of the Eagles, I feel like I've noticed this of. Dawkins, sometimes I notice it of. I feel like I don't see Dawkins do it all the time, but once in a while I'd be like, he jumped out ahead. So that's a good one. I like that one. Throw one our way if you want. Who's cheating? Who's cheating? But just enough so that no one would ever call them out on it. 803-0550 is the phone number. Got a lot of things you can get in on today if you'd like. The Sabres topic, which I'm sorry to bring the mood down here on a sunny, beautiful morning here on a Tuesday in the middle of June. 10 days until the NHL draft. All this comes up really quickly. And then free agency only a couple of days after that. And, hey, I was kind of excited for this offseason. A week ago, I was excited for this offseason. It was everybody that has a source, Friedman and Saravelli and Dreger and the French reporter for Renaud Lavoie, who I love saying his name. Who else? All these guys. They all, Pierre LeBrun, they all have been saying the Sabres are looking to do something. They're looking to do something big. They're going to be aggressive. They're calling teams to let them know, hey, we want to do something momentous this offseason. And what do you usually do in the NHL? You wait till the end of the final, so we know we're not getting that until at least the end of this week or probably next week. And then they'll get fired up leading up to the draft in 10 days. So not surprising that nothing's happened yet, and I wouldn't expect anything to happen for at least a few more days. But I was excited. Okay, give me something to live for a little bit with this team, even if it's modest. Give me, Ryan McLeod, that was a nice trade last year, right? Give me something that even rates above that. That gets me to check in just a little bit more than, you added a third line set. Okay, all right, nice. So what'd you give up? We could debate about that for, a day, and then, all right, everything else kind of the same, kind of sort of the same. Because when I hear aggressive, I'm thinking, okay, you're going to be willing to do another trade where you're moving a guy off your team that's important, or one of your top prospects, or the number 9 pick, and package that with a couple of things. And, hey, maybe Bo Byram's going to get traded, and you're going to find your way to some upgrade at forward or on the blue line, whatever. Go find that Owen Power partner. Finally. 3 years been waiting for that. Was pumped up. And then you've had a couple of days of this J.J. Peterka report from Friedman, and there was already smoke about it, so it's not out of left field. But Peterka wanting a change of scenery. Friedman saying that people believe that he's unhappy and that he wants out. And then, listening to Chopin Bulldog yesterday, I'm hearing them talk about Alex Tuck. And I'm thinking about Paul yesterday on with us, talking about Alex Tuck and then the whole core of the team. I'll get to that in a minute. But what Peterka wanting out means I mean, it does not feel good. It would be another guy that's talented that is just either sick of it, or maybe for him it's more about, maybe for him it's more about the area and that he wants to live in a big city, or he just wants to, maybe for him he just wants something different for his career. If Alex Tuch is going to want out, and you can rewind back to locker room cleanout day when he did his press conference and he got the layup question of, have you thought about, or what are your thoughts on your contract going into the final year of it when you're eligible to sign on July 1st? And Tuch, who, if he was 100% in and wanted to be here long term and felt like it was a matter of time before he would sign a long-term extension, that's the easiest question in the world. You just answer it with, I love the area, I love the guys, I want to be here, I want to be a part of the solution. Like, you could answer that question 7 different ways and no one will remember the way you answered it. But the way he did, which was more, I don't really want to talk about it right now. Said, I haven't really thought of it, haven't really thought about it at all, haven't spoken to my wife about it, which you would assume a guy would do. Just not dismissive of the question, but felt like, I don't want to get into it. Because why wouldn't a guy that has been a leader on this team, has been one of their best players, has, grown up nearby the area and grown up a Sabre fan, why would he not want to discuss, a future with the Buffalo Sabres? Well, potentially, it could be he's not convinced. He's not convinced that this is what's best for his career. And I'm not criticizing Alex Tuch if that is where he ultimately lands. Because, honestly, for his career, he's a little older than J.J. Peterka. We're talking about a 6-year gap between the two. Tuch is 29 years old. So this last contract, this is going to be his last big contract. If he signs for, 6 years or something of the sort, then that takes you to age 35, and that's the big one. You can go somewhere else after that if you're still a good player, but this is your big extension. And in some instances, it might be a decision on where do I want to, I've got half my career left if I'm lucky, where do I want to spend it? And does the guy, even the guy that grew up watching the 05-06 Sabres and watching Tim Connolly in the 06 playoffs, and Dumont and Afinogenov and Campbell and all these guys, does that guy that grew up with all of that say, I'm good being here forever? Or I want to win a cup? And for any player that's that good, and Tuch is very, very good. I mean, he's scored 36 goals exactly in 2 of the last 3 years. I just don't know how you could blame a guy for, I want to win the cup. When I'm done, when I look back on my career in 40 years, I want a picture in my house of me raising the Stanley Cup. I want a ring sitting on a display case somewhere. And how could you possibly right now believe that this is the place that's going to happen for you? I mean, I don't know what his relationship or what any of those players' relationships would be like with people in the front office and Adams, and what the relationships are like with Lindy Ruff, but I don't think it's a leap at all for a 29-year-old player that is as good as he is to say, do I want to keep going in circles and maybe one time this wheel will spit us out into the playoffs, or we'll just go around forever, as opposed to I could go be a part of something that's going to compete for championships. There was a report at the deadline that Tampa was interested in Tuch. And if I'm Tuch or Tuch's agent and knows, like, oh, Tampa, that's one team, there'll be no shortage of contenders that are going to want a 6'4" scoring winger that led the league in shorthanded goals and has, 66 games of playoff experience from before when he was in Buffalo. Who wouldn't want that guy? What contender wouldn't want that guy? It's why Tampa reportedly did want him. Florida might be out of spaces on the board, but almost anywhere else, you probably could get a look. So, going and winning championships versus, well, this is the team that I grew up with, and I'm sure he has a desire to turn it around. I think anybody would that has an emotional tie to the team, but how long does that go? And all this is to say, like, I think there is a real chance, and I have a real worry that Tuch might be going into the final year of his deal without the really... I don't know how good the chances are of him actually re-upping with the Sabres. I'm worried about it. Him more than Peterka, by a lot. I am worried about Tuch wanting to leave because I wonder what that starts to look like. If he wants to go, the guy with the emotional tie to the team from before he was even here, is that the first domino? The first real big domino to fall? Paul yesterday said, just in his own guesstimation, in his opinion, that if they are bad again this season, then that could be it for all of them. That is Dahlin, is Tage going to be able to say, I'm willing to keep going here? Now, they're under contract, so that's a little bit different than the Tuch situation, but are we on the verge of firing back up another stage of suffering and another rebuild? Or retool, call it whatever you want. Another flood of talented players that are just, they're done. They've had enough. I'm out. I don't know how far away we are, but when Paul says that, I don't think he's wrong. And if I were trying to figure out, how much more do they have, I think I might agree with him. That I might feel like if they don't do it this season, these guys are going to start filing out one by one. And what this fan base has already gone through for this amount of time and wanting to believe that there's something here to build on, if they start filing out one by one, I don't know what that's going to look like. It feels like the team can't sink any further than it already has with its fans. And if that starts happening again, I don't know where we are. I don't know what they do. I feel like they're lost at sea, and there's no hope if that is to start happening. And it really, if that is in the back of your mind, like it is in the back of my mind right now, that, hey, all of that could be the case in a year, then it really ratchets up the importance of this season. If you believe, like, okay, we're nearing the end here of the emotional toll that some of these guys can take, the amount of losing that these guys could take, I should really call it, then that makes this year all the more important. 803-0550 is the phone number. What I really wanted to get into, and what we will, is on the Sabres. If you have already checked out on them, what was the moment? What was the moment you checked out on the Sabres? And if you haven't, would this core wanting out be the final straw for you? Let me know what you think. Talking a little bit of hockey today. We'll get some football as well. The Panthers tonight and the Oilers. Game 6, Florida can win it. Back-to-back cups is on the line for them. And Edmonton trying to force a Game 7 back in their barn. Joe Yerdon's coming up at 9 o'clock. Jeremy's going to be along at 8. So a lot to get to. We have plenty of time for your phone calls in the next segment. Some trivia along the way as well. We'll have a lot of fun here on WGR.
Because this is my opinion. I have not heard this from any player, anybody else. I just have this feeling, if this happens again, one more year, I think they're all gone. I think Darlene will want to go. I don't think Darlene can take one more year of this. It just seemed like he was at his fill last year, but he has told us that he wants to fix this with the Sabres. He wants to stay. I believe him. But if this happens another year, I just think that's it. I think they'll be lining up to get out of here.
Paul Hamilton.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, Paul Hamilton. Everyone's got a breaking point, and you would think. Thanks, Paul.
Take care, guys.
Paul's appearance brought to you by Raylax, Honda Raylax. We got this NHL draft in 11 days. Free agency once we get to July. So the offseason approaches, and you want to say like it's a big one, of course.
I mean, the way Paul just set it up, it is like the biggest one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
I wonder, though, if fans will take into account that he really hasn't been here very long. This is not Thompson or Dahlin wanting out in a similar way that Eichel and Reinhart were like ready to go after 7 years of this, 8 years of this.
It's a much quicker timeline.
Peterka's been here for 3 years, and he's ready to hit the ejector seat. And if he's felt something along those lines this didn't just arrive on him now, like this is a feeling that he's had maybe for a little bit, then that could lead you to, well, I wonder if it's more about the city than it is more about the team. If that's a part of this. Because then that is a little different, I think, than like Eichel and Reinhart, when they want out, I never took that as anything to do with not wanting to be in Buffalo. I took that as they just were sick of losing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what Peterka's problem is.
He might just not like the area, not like the city.
Right.
He might want a different life.
Right. And the other difference between Peterka and those guys, maybe not Eichel, because Eichel had a lot of years left on that contract, but Reinhart was going to be a UFA in 12 months, right? Peterka cannot become an unrestricted free agency until July 1st of 2029. Like, the Sabres have control of him for a long time. So for him to be willing to make it tense at all, I think would show you how much he really would want to go, right? Like, because he would have that conversation with his agent. It's like, if we go down this road, like, this could be tough. And this could be uncomfortable for a while because you're not coming up on free agency. You're 23. You got a long way to go until you can get to that, or before you can even use that as a bit of leverage. So, I don't know. Like, I don't know how the fans will react to him wanting out versus those former stories of this wanting out, and how much the Sabres will want to play hardball.
Game 5 of the NBA Finals wrap up last night. The Thunder win 120-109 over the Pacers. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams combined for 71 points. Pacers point guard Tyrese Halliburton only putting up 4 last night as he has soreness in his right calf, according to Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle. The Thunder can now wrap things up on Thursday in Game 6. Game 6 set for 8:30 tip-off in Indianapolis. Tonight, the Stanley Cup Final gets back underway. Florida Panthers can win the Stanley Cup tonight for the second year in a row. They face off tonight at 8 o'clock down in Sunrise, Florida. You can hear that game right here on WGR. Coverage of the Stanley Cup Final is brought to you by Window Nation and Fiegel Car & Joyce, your border attorneys. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet sports headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership.
Turns it over, and that'll do it. The Oklahoma City Thunder now 1 win away from an NBA title. They'll try and clinch it on the road in Game 6. A playoff gem from Jalen Williams. Tyrese Halliburton, the Pacers, a strong comeback, but the Thunder have the answer. It's 3-2. OKC in front here in the NBA Finals.
Thunder are 1 win away from the NBA championship. Jason Williams was awesome last night. Jalen Williams, thank you. Did I see Jason Williams something recently? The elbow pass probably was on my TikTok last night. Anyways, 3-2, favor of OKC. Let's watch some of the highlights up there right now. See, Williams, I like watching Williams play. I know I kind of ranted about them in general, but a lot of that's SGA for me. Williams is fun. I mean, he's hitting step-back shots. He's hitting Dirk post moves down the stretch of that game. Yeah, I like him a lot. Tonight's game, I'm pumped for tonight's game. I don't want it to end. I really don't want it to end. I love this series between Florida and Edmonton. I know we've had a couple of downers. These 2 games in the last 3 that have been more closer to blowouts than back and forth affairs. That series gives you everything you need. The one thing that is very different about hockey than basketball culture right now and the way they're talked about is I still feel like rings culture hasn't infected hockey the way it has other sports. Because if it had, like if it was all about rings and maybe you think I'm wrong about this, is McDavid gonna get criticism for this series? Because I think the answer to that is no. I think hockey fans are smart enough to know this dude is the best player in the world, and we don't need to have months of debates about, his legacy at 28 years old. The reason I would even mention that is he only has 1 goal in the series, and the goal came when they were down 3 late in Game 5. And he has only 2 points in his last 3 games. I say only 2 points, but, this is McDavid, right? The standard for McDavid is you get 2 or 3 points a game, not 2 points over the course of 3 games. So him not putting up the big numbers while they are falling to Florida, I think in the NBA, in the NFL, the star player falling a little bit short of the bar like that would get criticized. And I just don't think that really is in the cards because of it being hockey. And it's also that maybe there is an understanding that how different the sports are in that McDavid's only on the ice for a third of the game. If he's on the ice for half the game, it's insane. So a third of the game. Whereas, the quarterback is out there for half of it. And The NBA player is out there for 80% of it. So maybe that's why it would be a little bit more fair to point to the one individual, like, hey, you let us down, you didn't show up in the big moment. McDavid, I think, has played fine. He just hasn't been putting up the numbers. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I don't expect there to be this cry out for, oh, this guy, he's no king. What did he do in the play? What did he do in the finals? I mean, really, you go to the playoffs before that, and you can just look. The guy's got 33 points in 21 games. It's not like he really was playing that poorly before these last 3 games, or wasn't putting up the numbers before these last 3 games. So I like that about hockey, though. I like that, for the most part, like, we're not going to be having these big legacy debates about McDavid until, maybe in 7 years, if he still hasn't won, and he's 34. 35, and that's still the case, that he hasn't won a championship, then maybe that changes a little bit. Because really, I pointed this out, that all these star players in the NHL, Crosby, Ovechkin, and before that, Lemieux and Gretzky, and all the superstar players of the league, they usually get their ring. They get there. And I would still have a belief that McDavid will. It would be unique, I think, if he was to go his entire career or almost entire career without winning one.
Don't you think that conversation is decided entirely in these next 2 games? Like, what he does in Game 6 and Game 7, if it gets there, will dictate how people talk about how he performed here?
You mean like if he goes out tonight and has a dud, a 0?
Right. If
on
he
the scoreboard?
If they go out tonight and he one secondary assist on the power play, and they lose 3-2, I think people will talk about McDavid as not really pushing them. I think that this series is about the best team we've seen, I think, in a long time in Florida,
right?
Versus McDavid and Draisaitl, and can they elevate what they do to a point where they can overcome what Florida throws at them?
I think the other thing that maybe could help him kind of skate on all of that, no pun intended, is the team that he's playing.
Right.
Right? It is, you're an all-time player, but it does feel like you get a little more of a pass when everybody understands that you're going up against an all-time team.
Yeah.
And I'm not wrong, right? Florida, I mean, they've got to get this thing home, but that's an all-time team.
That team, I don't think it can be overstated how just every aspect of what that team does, every level of their build, from Zito down to Maurice, their training, like, everything that organization does right now is the line to meet. Every organization in the league should be trying to replicate what's going on in Florida culturally, strategically, and roster building wise, I think.
I was going to say how their front office runs. I mean,
exactly.
They've got something for everybody. They really do have something for everybody. Like, I know we talk a lot about how the Panthers are just perfect in all these different ways, but I saw a story yesterday from Jeff Merrick, who was on a podcast where he said that the Panthers, like, they're tough and they're gritty and there's the culture there, and then also they're an extremely analytics-heavy team. I
saw that too, and I find that so interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's such a... People think of that team as, like,
very differently.
Tough, mean team.
Right.
They are that. But they're also, like you said, like Zito doesn't do anything without.
That's what he said. He said Bill Zito will not make a move without approval from his head of analytics, Sonny Mehta.
Right, which I think people who don't know that about them, maybe their heads would fly off if they hear that.
Because isn't that how they arrive at Evan Rodriguez is good enough to be a top 6 player for us, and Gustav Forsling is going to be a top 4 defenseman for us? These guys that other teams didn't really value in the same way, and they see more in there. Maybe even Reinhardt is a greater example of that.
Bobrovsky even like signing him to that deal is a risk that they took that they could have tried to get out from.
Right.
And they recognized a big story with them when they got good was they figured out how to maximize Bobrovsky in terms of by studying his recovery data. And they realized he plays twice as well after he has rest and when he can rebuild. Mm-hmm. And that changed how Bobrovsky's performed for them. He was a disaster the first couple years of that contract to the point where they were like looking to get off of it. And now that's insane to even think about. He's a top 5, top 7 goalie in the league at this point with the performances he's given the last 3 years. It's incredible.
Completely shed the playoff, can't do it in the playoffs mantra that he kind of had. But they do have all these examples of this guy, we got him here. We thought there was more in there. The underlying numbers liked him more than a lot of teams did. And we bet on that, and we ended up being right. They have so many examples of that. That maybe is one of my smaller disappointments about the Buffalo Sabres is when they built this front office in the shadow of all those firings during COVID, and they kind of tore apart the hockey department and the whole organization. And they hired some people around Kevin Adams. The some people I was excited about. Like, hey, they're bringing in Jason Karmanos
and Nightingale.
Who and more than that, like Sam Ventura, who led the analytics department in Pittsburgh and built that. You know, I've got these that really was what it was. It seemed to me that spending less money, one of the maybe positive consequences of that was going to be it's cheaper to be a data-driven team than a team that's flying, 8 scouts to 9 different countries and every different state all around the world. If you're trying to do it cheap, I was thinking, well, maybe that'll lead them to, the data, maybe to more of these guys are having more of an influence in the organization. And I guess I don't want to say they don't have an influence. I just wonder what the influence is like, how data driven, how analytical they really are. Because I don't really see a lot of examples of it. I mean, who's the Sabres story of? Usually it goes the other way. Who's their guy that they bet on and said, the league doesn't think this guy is as good as we do. We're going to bring him here, and he's going to be better than he ever has been. I think there's one. There's at least one. Ryan McLeod.
Oh, yeah.
They traded more for Ryan McLeod than anybody thought he was worth. And everybody went, you traded your best prospect for Ryan McLeod, who was on the 4th line in Edmonton, and his career high in goals was like 11. And the Sabres said he had some good underlying numbers, especially defensively, and they made a bet and said, this guy's better than that. And then he got here and he was better than that. Yeah. So there's one, but like I don't know that I
need more.
Maybe there's another one I'm missing, but I don't see another one that I can really think of.
There's not one top of mind like that.
Yeah. 803-0550, the phone number. If you want to give us a call on like what was the moment you checked out on the Sabres, feel free, because I've got some tweets and some texts that I want to read about this, and a lot of them are, if you haven't yet, maybe Tuck wanting out would be the one that did it. 803-0550, the phone number. It's Jeremy and Joe here on WGR. I wonder, though, if fans will take into account that he really hasn't been here very long. This is not Thompson or Dahlin wanting out in a similar way that Eichel and Reinhart were like ready to go after 7 years of this, 8 years of this.
It's a much quicker timeline.
Peterka's been here for 3 years, and he's ready to hit the ejector seat. And if he's felt something along those lines this didn't just arrive on him now, like this is a feeling that he's had maybe for a little bit, then that could lead you to, well, I wonder if it's more about the city than it is more about the team. if that's a part of this, because then that is a little different, I think, than like Eichel and Reinhart when they want out. I never took that as anything to do with not wanting to be in Buffalo. I took that as they just were sick of losing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what Peterka's problem is.
He might just not like the area, not like the city.
Right.
He might want a different life.
Right. And the other difference between Peterka and those guys, maybe not Eichel, because Eichel had a lot of years left on that contract, but Reinhart was going to be a UFA in 12 months, right? Peterka cannot become an unrestricted free agency until July 1st of 2029. Like, the Sabres have control of him for a long time. So for him to be willing to make it tense at all, I think would show you how much he really would want to go, right? Like, because he would have that conversation with his agent. It's like, if we go down this road, like, this could be tough. And this could be uncomfortable for a while because you're not coming up on free agency. You're 23. You got a long way to go until you can get to that, or before you can even use that as a bit of leverage. So, I don't know. Like, I don't know how the fans will react to him wanting out versus those former stories of this wanting out, and how much the Sabres will want to play hardball. I think there is a real chance, and I have a real worry, that Tuch might be going into the final year of his deal without the really... I don't know how good the chances are of him actually re-upping with the Sabres. I'm worried about it. Him more than Peterka, by a lot. I am worried about Tuch wanting to leave, because I wonder what that starts to look like. If he wants to go, the guy with the emotional tie to the team from before he was even here, is that the first domino? The first real big domino to fall? Paul yesterday said, just in his own guesstimation, in his opinion, that if they are bad again this season, then that could be it for all of them. That is Dahlin, is Tage going to be able to say, I'm willing to keep going here? Now, they're under contract, so that's a little bit different than the Tuch situation, but are we on the verge of firing back up another stage of suffering and another rebuild? Or retool, call it whatever you want. Another flood of talented players that are just, they're done. They've had enough. I'm out. I don't know how far away we are, but when Paul says that, I don't think he's wrong. And if I were trying to figure out, how much more do they have, I think I might agree with him. That I might feel like if they don't do it this season, these guys are going to start filing out one by one. We're going to do a lot of stadium reminiscing over the next year as we get into the new stadium. Last night, Matt Beauvais, who we had on yesterday on the show, WKBW, they did their first episode of, I think he's calling it Fandemonium, is the name of the series. Lead the charge, 52 years of Fandemonium. Yesterday was the first episode going back to when the stadium was built and a little bit in the 70s and the 80s and seeing some of the old pictures of the stadium. It looks like such a different stadium when it was first built, Highmark Stadium, or then Rich Stadium, where the scoreboard was smaller and there's no building on top of the seats like you see now, where they have billboards up on top of all of those different sections, behind the end zones, and it almost looks like a completely different stadium in some of those pictures. But it's really cool to see the beginnings of the stadium, the construction pictures, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun in the next year reminiscing, and especially the memories that you have that maybe don't come right to mind for everybody else. Because 51-3 and the perfect game against New England, those are going to be in the comeback game. Those are going to be the top three. Mount Rushmore days at that stadium. But I remember having the junior hockey outdoor game like 10 years ago, and I remember a Bills-Cardinals game and a Bills-Vikings game where I met Lindy Ruff for the first time as a kid. Just everybody's going to have, their own stories to tell, and I think over the next year it's going to be great. And Matt's got Joe DeLamielleure in there, and Joe Ferguson, Marv, of course, Mary Wilson. So it's a cool series. Looking forward to seeing the next episodes coming out too. 803-0550, the phone number. Where did you check out? When did you check out on the Sabres? And will Alex Tuck leaving, if he were to do that, be the final straw? What about this whole core doing it? A lot of hockey stuff to get to on the Sabres. And the football world, I think, is starting to crown Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson as being better than Patrick Mahomes. Another football analyst yesterday wants you to know, I don't think Mahomes right now is the best quarterback in the league. So I feel like we're on our way to a lot of quarterback debates in the next month while these teams are off, and I think it's centered around Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes. 803-0550, the phone number. A little bit of that coming up as well here on WGR. The other thing I had to think of last night about that game and that series, and tell me if this reminds you of anybody in another sport, because I'm sure there are going to be examples of this, but when I watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he is the NBA's MVP. Breakout superstar. He's been a star in the league, but superstar ascension this year. Probably going to win the title, and when they win the title, he's going to win Finals MVP. I think it's pretty rare company, by the way, to win NBA MVP and Finals MVP in the same year. I don't think that often happens. So, if he wins the title, or if he even doesn't, I think more people have gotten to see him this season than any before just being in the finals. I can't watch the guy. I got into this with Sal a couple of weeks ago. I simply have trouble. There was a 3-minute during the game explanation that ESPN was doing with Mike Breen and Doris Burke, and I forget who's the third voice on that broadcast. Is it Richard Jefferson? Might be Richard Jefferson. They're having a discussion about SGA and push-offs and how every shot looks like a push-off, and they showed an example of the big shot he hit in Game 4, which was clearly a push-off. They even said, I think Jefferson said on the broadcast, that's a push-off, that's an offensive foul, but here's why they don't call it, and giving you the defense for why they don't call it. I feel like this guy has a a cheat code a little bit. He's figured out the rules. If Alex Tuch is going to want out, and you can rewind back to locker room cleanout day when he did his press conference and he got the layup question of, have you thought about, or what are your thoughts on your contract going into the final year of it when you're eligible to sign on July 1st? And Tuch, who, if he was 100% in and wanted to be here long term and felt like it was a matter of time before he would sign a long-term extension, that's the easiest question in the world. You just answer it with, I love the area, I love the guys, I want to be here, I want to be a part of the solution. Like, you could answer that question 7 different ways and no one will remember the way you answered it. But the way he did, which was more, I don't really want to talk about it right now. Said, I haven't really thought of it, haven't really thought about it at all, haven't spoken to my wife about it, which you would assume a guy would do. Just not dismissive of the question, but felt like, I don't want to get into it. Because why wouldn't a guy that has been a leader on this team, has been one of their best players, has, grown up nearby the area and grown up a Sabre fan, why would he not want to discuss, a future with the Buffalo Sabres? Well, potentially it could be he's not convinced. He's not convinced that this is what's best for his career. And I'm not criticizing Alex Tuch if that is where he ultimately lands.
Good morning. Game 5 of the NBA Finals wrap up last night. The Thunder win 120-109 over the Indiana Pacers. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams combined for a whopping 71 points. Pacers point guard Tyrese Halliburton only put up 4 points last night despite averaging around 18 points per game so far this playoffs. Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle said after the game that Halliburton was suffering from a sore right calf throughout the second half, but he should be okay to play in Game 6. Game 6 is a winner-take-all for the Thunder on Thursday at 8:30 in Indianapolis. The Florida Panthers could lift the cup for the second season in a row tonight with a win over the Edmonton Oilers. The two teams will face off in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final down in Sunrise, Florida for an 8 o'clock puck drop, and you can hear that game right here on WGR starting at 7:30. Coverage of the Stanley Cup Final on WGR is brought to you in part by Window Nation and by Fiegel Car & Joyce, your border attorneys. Although it was brief, Shohei Ohtani finally made his return to the pitcher's mound yesterday for the first time since 2023. Ohtani underwent Tommy John surgery prior to joining the LA Dodgers and made his much-anticipated pitching debut for the team yesterday. He only pitched 1 inning, giving up 2 hits and 1 earned run while facing 5 batters. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Josh Schmidt for WGR Sports Radio 550.
My indication is that the Lightning are going to be one of the teams that are in the mix on the Peterka sweepstakes. So what that looks like, how they pull it off, I don't know what vets would be going back the other way. But if you're Buffalo and you want help now, maybe Tampa's one of those teams that can solve for that need for you.
That is Frank Saravalli on Daily Faceoff. Good morning. It's Jeremy and Joe. Josh Schmidt producing. Owen Parker as well. I almost said Owen Power. That's going to happen. Anyways, Tampa. All right, let's play the game. We want to trade him to Tampa? That's for Peterka, right? They want Peterka? All right, look at Tampa's salary. Tampa has got so many expensive players on their roster. Kucherov, 9.5. Point, 9.5. Gensel, 9. Hagel, 6.5. I love Brandon Hagel. Saravalli, 6.25. Bjorkstrand, 5.4. I mean, this is what's tough. Like, it's got to be a hockey trade. I don't want to pick some prospects. And this is probably what Kevin Adams is dealing with right now is, okay, you want my really talented forward. Well, I want a really talented forward in exchange. So what can we do here? That's where I almost wonder the trades that make the most sense right now would be you swap Peterka for a defenseman because that's probably an easier trade to make than finding a team that wants to go forward for forward. But then you're going to want a forward, so you trade Byram for a forward. You go Peterka for a defenseman, and you go Byram for a forward. And then you kind of combine the two together and look at it at the end and see how that looks. So, who do I pick from Tampa? Eric Cernak. That's not enough. I don't know. It's tough. Maybe Tampa's not good for this. I'm looking around their roster, and their players are either too good or Hagel. They wouldn't do that, though, right? Would Tampa do Brendan? Bring it full circle. The guy that was once drafted by the Sabres and, they let walk for nothing. Thanks, Jason Botterill. Hagel goes to Chicago, becomes a really good player, and then they're not doing that.
How would Hagel feel about that?
Coming back here? He has no trade protection. That's the only reason I'm even inciting his name in this. Because I can't find another player that really... I can't really find another player that makes sense for this. If Tampa wants him, can I get Hagel for Peterka? And is Peterka in the 9th overall pick too much for him? Can I do that? 90 points last year. He's older, 26. He's better defensively. He's had Selke votes 3 years in a row. You can't get him, right? I'm only even bringing him up because he can't say no. So there's that. This is the life we live with this hockey team. To talk about a guy and a trade, you have to look and see, can they say no to you?
That's a tough spot to be.
It's brutal.
It sucks. I get so frustrated because I get so excited because I love this team so much despite all of its pain. And every time I'm thinking about an idea, I get all excited and I'm like, it's just not.
Right.
Nothing feels realistic. And that sucks as a fan of the team because you want to think that your team can do something cool and exciting, and I think they can.
Yeah.
But it's just been so many years of this sort of pain where you're almost you're just ready for nothing to work out. And it's so tough.
What you really need is them to have their Mario Williams moment.
Right.
The Mario Williams moment is the Bills are in the drought and they are a joke. They are not. They're hardly an NFL franchise, right? They can't get coaches to come there. They have to hire Chan Gailey, who hadn't even been a coordinator the year before. And they signed the number one free agent in free agency. Now, credit to Ralph Wilson. Ralph Wilson was ready to pay him more money than any defensive player ever.
Right.
To get him to come here. And I don't know if the Sabres would do that for a player with Terry Pegula right now. Maybe they would. But that's what I'm waiting for. I'm like, can you just shock us once and bring in... They did kind of do it with Taylor Hall. They shocked me then, but it just didn't work.
It didn't work. Yeah, it doesn't hold the same weight when it goes so poorly.
Anyways, I got some good answers from people on Twitter of when they checked out or what it would take for them to check out on this team, but we got to call on this first. Let's go to Dave in Buffalo. Josh, if you could pull him up for me. Dave in Buffalo. What's up, Dave?
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I think you've raised an interesting point, but to me I think what Kevin Adams needs to do is not trade for a great performer, not trade for some guy who's, a minor Tate Thompson or whatever. What he needs to trade for is someone who can lead. That is one thing I think that the Sabres are really missing. Brandon Beane has done a good job with the Bills because he's really been able to embody leadership working with McDermott. So everybody eats, is a short form mantra, and that really defined the team and how they performed and helped make Josh the MVP because he put the ball up and he threw it around and did certain things. If the Sabres can really trade for someone who comes to this team and says that the important thing here is accountability, not just accountability to myself, but we need to be accountable to each other. So the thing that will define whether I'm a success here or not is not how I perform, but whether the team performs around me is going to be the thing that the Sabres really need. So what I'm looking for is a good storyteller, someone who can really lead this team, and that I think will make the difference.
All right. Thanks, Dave, for the call. That's the one thing, though, that I do kind of feel like they've tried. Think of the things that they've done that have failed during this playoff drought. And one of them is not what Dave's mentioning here about leadership, is what we were just talking about the big ticket free agent. I mean, they tried that. They signed Taylor Hall. It was only a one-year deal, and it was horrible. Didn't come close to working. He scored 2 goals. Really, you could point to Okposo a little bit for that too, because he was the number one free agent after Stamkos signed, and that didn't work. So they've done that, and it hasn't worked. I do feel like they've tried what Dave's talking about. They have brought in veteran leaders, storytellers, guys that can show the young guys the way. The problem has always been that those players weren't good enough to kind of earn that respect, if you will. I'm thinking of Brian Giunta a little bit for this, who was just at the end of his career, and he was still a player. Like, he was worthy of being on an NHL roster, but the leader of your team, I still would like that to see that be a guy that's at the top of their roster, top of their lineup guy. And I don't know. What are they going to do? Do you want them to go bring Jonathan Toews out of retirement? Because he's coming back. You want to go sign Patrick Kane? You want to fire that conversation back up for the 9,000th time? Because he's about to be a free agent. I wouldn't do it just for the sake of doing it. Guy's going to go play 9 minutes on my fourth line. So I'm not saying you're wrong in that they couldn't use some help on that front, but I guess I have faith in Rasmus Dahlin in that department. I have faith in Rasmus Dahlin in that department. I'd like to see it kind of result in more for the teammates, but Dahlin, I think, talks the talk, and he walks the walk himself. But, what is true leadership? True leadership is not just getting yourself to do the right things. It's getting everybody around you to do the right things too. And that might be tough. That might be tough for anybody. Nobody would say that Kyle Okposo wasn't a great leader, but did anybody feel like they were doing the right things around him? There was some immaturity with both of the cores, if you want. The Eichel-Reinhart core before that Okposo was like the leader in the locker room of, and then this most recent one. And I'm talking about habits and on the ice stuff, let alone, revolting against the fans because they booed you when you were probably down 5-0 to the Blue Jackets. Because that happened when he was the leader of the locker room too. So, it's nice to hear, or it's a nice idea, but I don't know how in practice it actually makes a big enough impact that we're talking about the culture changing here. The culture changing is going to have to be the playoffs, and it's going to have to be winning. But what's going to happen first? They're going to get smart, and they're going to make a couple of savvy moves, or they're just going to get lucky and get in and ride that wave. Because one of those two things has to happen here. Now, some of the answers we've had on when you checked out, there's a couple of popular answers from what I'm seeing. Thank you to everybody that's participating, by the way, at Sneaky Joe Sports. You can tweet in your answer to this, or call in 803-0550. You prefer that. During the losing streak with Ralph Kruger, or during the losing streak last year, makes total sense. Long, lengthy losing streaks. You had an 18-game losing streak. Unbelievable, right? 18-game losing streak 5 years ago, and then a 13-game losing streak last year. Easy spot to check out. I just can't do this anymore. Last year against Montreal, when Terry Pegula flies to Montreal to tell them that he believes the answer's in this room, and then they go out and they get smoked by Montreal. That was a tough 24 hours.
My friend was at that game as a Sabres fan in Montreal. Yeah, he said he left by the second
Traveled
period.
there? Like he doesn't live there?
Yeah. He wanted. Jeez. He had it marked. He wanted to go to Montreal, and he also planned it around a Sabres game.
Yep.
And he left by halfway through the second period.
How bad does it have to be if you travel to a Sabre or to a game for your team, whoever it is, and you don't stay to the end? It's got to be a bad, bad night.
That happened to me in Nashville when I went a couple years ago. It was Bowen Byram's first game. They were down 4-1, and me and my buddies were like, all right,
yep,
let's go.
Couple people have said they checked out after the Eichel trade, that they're going through a long rebuild here, and I'm not here for it. That's an answer. When Eichel won the Cup is an answer that somebody tweeted in. I wonder what the most popular... A lot of this is Kruger. During Kruger is... that's the one that I kind of empathize with the most, because that was torture to watch him try to coach that hockey team. Torture. When they traded O'Reilly away, this is the thing. It's so many years of this that everyone's going to have a different moment that it's going to happen. And that's where I really am worried about the idea of Tuck leaving. Because if Alex Tuck doesn't re-sign with them and doesn't believe in this thing, then one, I'm going to want to know why. If it's not just that you've been losing, why don't you think they're going to turn it around? Does it have something to do with Adams being the GM? Does he want the team to get serious? Because my worry isn't just that Tuck would leave. My worry about Tuck leaving is who follows in his wake. What are Tage Thompson? It's mostly about Tage and Dahlin. That's really what it is. I feel like I'm holding my breath every day with this hockey team just praying you get through the day without seeing something that says, Dahlin and Tage, this could be it. When Dahlin, the Bissonnette story came out last year where Paul Bissonnette said that Dahlin met with the team and said that if we don't get this turnaround now, I'm going to want out. Something along those lines, Bissonnette said. I feel like I'd been holding my breath and I went, all right, here we go. Here we go again. And then, luckily that seemed to have been vastly exaggerated. Friedman said that it came from him, whatever. So you got through that. And right now we sit where Dahlin and Tage Thompson sound committed, as committed as they can be, and they're under contract for a long time, but I feel like I'm holding my breath. I think this is a big year. I know they all kind of look the same. All these seasons kind of feel the same during the playoff drought, but I think to avoid another one of these, light the whole thing on fire phases, you gotta have a season here. You can't be 75 points out of the playoffs by January. I think this has to be a year. I don't even know if they have to make it, but it's about the fans and it's about the players in that room, because the players in that room are feeling what the fans do. That's why I never criticized Ryan O'Reilly for saying what he did. The bunch of fans that have tweeted back at me that, I checked out right around that time. Well, okay, you got a guy on the team that was feeling that way. He didn't check out on the ice, but mentally he certainly had gone through it, losing that much. I'll empathize with that because we're going through the same thing. So if Alex Tuch is fed up with it and he's got the power to get out of it, I understand it. But that's where, what do I have to do to convince these guys that, hey, we're close, keep going. This thing doesn't need to get torn apart again. We don't need to do that. We need to add to it. Nobody needs to tear it apart again. So you don't need to go. We're going to add around you. You don't need to go. For that to stay together, do they just have to be close? I think that might be all it takes. Just a confirmation that, hey, we're almost there. Do this a little different. Because if you're at 72, 75 points, you can't make that argument. You sound silly trying to make that argument. 803-0550 is the phone number. One tweet that just came in is way back when they let Drury and Briere walk in the same offseason is when they checked out. Anyways, Florida tonight, they're looking to win the Stanley Cup for the second year in a row. When are we allowed to call them a dynasty if they win? Are we allowed to call that? Is there any way we're hypothetical we're allowed to call them a dynasty after this season?
I think I have a hot take on this. I think they are.
Yeah?
I think it's so hard.
Are you saying, though, assuming they win? Or you're saying already?
I'm going to go with it doesn't matter if they win.
Wow.
I think that making 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, winning one, going up against McDavid, and then going through the teams they went through in Tampa, who were the last dynasty we saw, right?
Yeah.
I would argue that this is a dynasty. This team, the way that they're put together, the reputation that they hold in the league, like the way other teams and markets talk about them, I think has a place to hold here. And the way that they just continue to dominate everybody they play, I think that this team should be considered that. That's how I feel about it.
I do think it is a hot take, just in that I think you can't just win one.
I know
to be considered a I know what you're saying, because what was the name of the Bills 30 for 30? Almost a dynasty,
right? I
feel like that's kind of how I would feel about Florida a little bit. But 1 versus 0, I get it.
If the Bills had won one of those.
If they had won one and gone to the other 3, right. I don't think you could have called it a dynasty.
It's tough. I think it's
I wouldn't have. I mean, I wouldn't have personally.
I think now, especially in the league that is as watered down as it is due to expansion and with how many teams there are due to expansion, I think being able to dominate and consistently get to where that team has gotten to over these last 3 years is worthy of that label.
So you certainly would call them that then if they win tonight.
100%.
2 out of 3, and you went to the other final.
Right.
That's a dynasty.
I would say yes.
Because that is, that's what. Well, you could say it's better, right? The Blackhawks didn't go to 3 in a row, right? They won 3 out of 5.
Right.
I think it is.
I think that's
and they
correct.
won all 3 that they went to. I don't think they lost one that they went to. Right, because the tough part is you're not gonna get. What did the Oilers do in the 80s? It's like 4 in a row, 5 in a row. The Islanders won 4 in a row. Like, yeah. Probably not. I mean, I guess Florida could really test that next year,
right?
If they were to win.
If Florida goes back, and I think they're due for a step back after this season. I would imagine, just due to they're going to lose one of or both of Ekblad and Bennett, and it's just. You can't be this good for this long, especially being older like they are. Bobrovsky's going to hit a wall at some point. I don't think that they're going to be this good for too much longer than this. I could see him being good again next year, but past that, I don't.
It's a good question. How long will they be this good?
That's the
because they're about perfect. Really, the goalie's a question too. Bobrovsky's 37.
Yeah, he's to me the first thing you'll see with that roster that'll kind of disappear, and I think that's when they'll kind of miss Levi.
Yep,
from trading him over here.
I mean, they're certainly going all in. They probably got like a 2-3 year window. I think. I would expect them to. I would expect them to win another cup. I think they will finish this series. I think they'll finish this series, and I think they will win another cup. Ooh. I think they'll get to 3. And then you are absolutely a dynasty by I think everyone's definition. Because I think most people, you at 1, but you said it. You said it's a hot take. I think most people would say 3. Some would say 2. But that's usually the debate. That's usually the line where we have the debate. Yeah. You want to pull it down to 1. 3 appearances. I get it.
Yeah, I think the appearances and the fashion in which they got there, I think. Matters too. I think they've beaten some incredible teams along the way. They beat that Boston team the first year.
Rick just tweeted in, so the Bandits have gone to 5 straight championships. If they didn't three-peat this year, they would not have been called a dynasty. Now they are, though. And you're by Owen, but Owen would have called them a dynasty before they won this year.
100% I would have.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're in the finals for a half decade straight, that's a dynasty.
Does it have to go longer than 3 years? Do you have to see them, because if you, no, 3-peat would be called a dynasty, so I guess that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because anything you do within 3 years, if you win 3 in a row, then that would have been qualified as that. So I guess I want to see them do it one more time. I want to see them make it one more time. How about that?
I'd like that.
If they win 2, but they go to 4 in a row, I'm in. I'll call it a dynasty. I'm going to be on the fence, though, after tonight. It is definitely one of the greatest teams I've ever seen in my life. The one was well-built,
I might
played the best.
Sort of combining those two things in my brain a little bit, best team, just individual team combined with sort of their legacy because they've been so good. So that might be influencing me a little bit. Obviously, recency bias is a thing. But I just think that the way that they've done things these past 3-4 years is pretty significant.
I think it's over the last 2 or the last 3 years. It's the last 3 postseasons that the Panthers are 26-11 on the road. On the road.
That's nuts.
They're 26-11. They're an all-time team. We'll have the dynasty debate maybe after they win tonight. 803-0550 is the phone number. Who is now saying Josh Allen's better than Patrick Mahomes? Yesterday it was Sam Monson. Today we have another analyst that's willing to step out and say that, Mahomes isn't the best. That when we come back here on WGR.
at the Wayland fundraiser on Thursday, where we raised a lot of money for the 100 holes. Thanks everybody to everybody out there who came, still getting all the prizes. And the winners, many of the winners have been notified. I'm still working on getting prizes to people. But anyway, so, hanging out, saying hi to a lot of people. Hi, nice to meet you. Listen all the time. Anyway, we met this guy who listens all the time, Ray, and it was great to meet all these people. He introduces me, sister, blah blah. We're just talking, and topic comes up like, oh, so and so, blah blah blah. She's about your age. She said this to me.
Okay,
like, this person's about your age, and I immediately thought like, well, we haven't discussed how old I am, so what's the obvious follow-up question? Oh, how old do you think I am? Mm-hmm. Okay, which, all right, here comes the answer.
Yeah,
how old do you think I am? She responds, oh, about 50. Oh. And I go,
but she didn't say 50.
She said about 50.
About 50.
She's about 50.
Yeah.
And I replied, that's not wrong.
It's not wrong.
That is not that wrong.
But you weren't. You were caught off guard by the number. How it sounded.
I thought the response would be 40s. That's
40s. Right. See, those are the same thing, but one window. Sounds way better than the other.
Right. Yeah. It's a big window. That S is doing work. 40s.
Yeah.
Oh, about 50.
Yeah.
I'm 45.
About 50.
I'll be 46 in 10 days.
It might have been better if she'd even said approaching 50.
Everybody's approaching
because about 50 could be, you're somewhere between 46 and 52.
You're right. About 50 could equal 52.
Right. Right. Someone 7 years older than you, like, you could still do that with Bulldog, right? Like, about 50.
I have no idea how old people are. I don't know.
How old's your dad? 55?
He's
54?
59, I think. I think
he might be in that neighborhood.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. 65.
Because for him, I could see someone say like about 50.
He turned 60 this year.
Yeah.
I remember his 50th birthday party. 60.
See, that is more stunning to me than you being close to 50.
Well,
am I close to 50 or not? I'm 45
about
still.
50, sorry, about 50.
About 50.
Okay, right. See, he's right. We should hold off until he turns 46.
Right, I'm not even in my late 40s yet.
I think actually maybe they might be wrong. If you're 45 still, and the numbers ends 45, you're not about 50 yet.
No, I got.
But the second you get to 46, you're about 50.
47 is late 40s. 46 is mids. I'm still mid.
My question is it starting again? I mean, it seems like every 3 to 5 years, the Sabres get players, and then they develop them, and some of them become very good players, and then all of a sudden, because of the losing and whatever's going on, they want to go. Is that happening again?
Yeah.
I mean, what happens if indeed Tuck doesn't want to be here anymore, and Peterka doesn't want to be here anymore, and Byram, Peterka, and Tuck get traded? Well, what are Dahlin and Thompson saying then? Mm-hmm. Do they now get in line? Do they? And what is the reason? Do they not believe in Ruff? Do they not believe in Adams?
Let me jump in.
Losing?
Yeah, let me ask you about the Adams point because, Paul, the Sabres are obviously in a unique.
The Thunder win Game 5 of the NBA Finals last night, taking a 3-2 series lead over the Indiana Pacers, winning 120-109. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams combined for a whopping 71 points. Game 6 is set for Thursday at 8:30 in Indianapolis. In the Thunder, if they win, can win the NBA championship. The Florida Panthers could lift the Stanley Cup tonight for the second season in a row with a win over the Edmonton Oilers. The two teams face off in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final down in Sunrise, Florida for an 8 o'clock puck drop tonight. You can hear that game right here on WGR at 7:30. Coverage of the Stanley Cup Final is brought to you in part by Window Nation and Fiegel Car & Joyce, your border attorneys. Although it was brief, Shohei Ohtani made his return to the pitcher's mound yesterday, making his debut as a pitcher for the LA Dodgers. He only pitched 1 inning, giving up 2 hits and 1 earned run while facing 5 batters. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet sports headlines. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership.
I know Mahomes and the capabilities he has and how special he is. And yes, he wins, and he's arguably the clutchest quarterback I've ever seen. But also, because of his team, he's afforded to play a certain style sometimes that I would tell you Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen can't, right? He can throw a ball away on 3rd down or 1st down, just go, I don't like it. I'm just going to put it here, and we'll be in 2nd and 10. My defense is really good. He'll keep us in the game. And because of that, that's not necessarily led itself to perfect quarterback play. Now, they win the game, and he knows how to play to win the game, and that's where this exercise is so hard. But I think if you broke it down game by game and you watched film with me, you'd go, yeah, I think, Chris, you're right. Burrow, Allen, and Lamar Jackson had a better year than Patrick Mahomes in the way he played last year.
Chris Sims on NBC Sports. He is ranking quarterbacks. He does that every year. And he does not have Patrick Mahomes number 1. Good morning, it's Jeremy and Joe. Jeremy will jump on at 8. Not only does he not have Mahomes number 1, he has Mahomes number 4. Below Burrow, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. Sorry, Bill Simmons, he does have Lamar Jackson number 1 over Josh Allen, but he kind of had them. Does he have them kind of on their own tier right now? Which many would have from last season, but he had Mahomes at number 4. I think this is what a lot of football debate's going to be in the next month. July is usually, nothing's really happening. I guess this year we have some of the star edge rushers that are worth tracking. Trey Hendrickson, TJ Watt, maybe Micah Parsons a little bit too. He's not holding out or anything, but he needs a new contract in Dallas. But there's nothing really happening with those guys at the moment. Nobody's on the field doing anything until training camp, so we got a month. And in the last couple of days, here's another one. Yesterday was Sam Monson. Today it's Chris Sims, who are willing to go, all right, if we're ranking these quarterbacks, I'm not putting Mahomes number 1. And that's a couple of guys that watch the film and evaluate it that are like, yeah, no, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson played better football last year. And Sims is going as far as to say that Burrow did too. The question I have about Mahomes, and you could extend this to Josh Allen too, because of the way the Bills played offense last year, a little more running the ball, and the defense in Buffalo has always been very good with Allen. And in the last couple of years, that's also been true of Mahomes. Are we ever going to see these two put up the video game numbers that they have in the past? Or is there just not a need for it anymore, so who cares? And that's not even meant as a criticism to say, especially about Allen, the way the Bills are playing. Because Mahomes, it's more than just the totals. It was the efficiency last year, too. Patrick Mahomes last year had a lower yards per attempt than Anthony Richardson did. So it wasn't just how much you threw for, it was how efficient were you, and there were some questions on that. But, 2 years ago, 2022, so 3 years ago, Patrick Mahomes threw for 5,200 yards and 41 touchdowns. In his first full season, he threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. Josh Allen, in his 2020 season, threw for 4,500 yards and 37 touchdowns. And the next year, 4,400 yards and 36 touchdowns. Last year, for Josh, 3,728 touchdowns. Mahomes, last year, 3,800 yards, 3,900 yards, and 26 touchdowns. Still good. Still really good. And again, for Allen, even better because he was super efficient with it, didn't turn the ball over as much, and has the running on top of it. But you're not seeing video game passer numbers. And I do wonder if that's ever going to return for them. Look what it took for Joe Burrow to get there. It took him having the worst defense in football and playing catch-up week after week after week. And I don't know the Bills have to have the best defense this year, but I would be surprised if they ever had the worst defense in the league. I did make a bet with Jeremy they'll have a bottom 10 defense at some point in McDermott's career, but the Bengals were the worst. I would never make the bet the Bills would be the worst defense in the league. And that's how Joe Burrow gets to 4,900 yards and 43 touchdowns. So maybe this is more of a commentary about the league, because the league ran the ball more last year. And there's a couple ways to think about that. One is, look at Allen and Mahomes. You don't need your quarterback to put up video game numbers to be an elite offense. Even though the Chiefs weren't an elite offense. The Bills are the better example of it. You don't need it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about 5,000 yards. Don't worry about 50 touchdowns. You don't need it. But I do think there is still a value in being able to throw the ball like that. And no one's really doing it. Burrow's doing it, but Burrow's doing it, how much if it is against soft coverage because they're down? Some of it. I wonder who's the team that's going to figure out better than anybody. We ran the ball for a couple of years because that's what defenses were dictating, because defenses had figured it out. Took them a couple of years, but they found their way to neutralize these downfield pass attacks by these alien quarterbacks. They found the best way to do that, and it was basically to dare you to run the football, almost gifting the run game to the other team. So the Bills have said, yeah, we'll run it down your throats, and we'll do it successfully. And the Chiefs tried to do that. The Ravens built the best rushing attack we've seen maybe in NFL history last year, statistically at least, with Henry and Jackson. We'll run it on you. But I wonder who that first team is going to be that goes, or that really figures it out again. That, we know how to throw the ball down the field on this. See, it took you a couple years, defenses, to figure out how to stop us with these big plays, these explosive plays. It took us a couple of years, but we're gonna have our chess move right back at you. And I don't know that I don't know that anyone's really truly done that yet without implementing we're gonna run. Like a lot of run-heavy teams last year were the top offenses. And for the Bills specifically, I wonder their part in that. If they have a desire for it, if they don't care about it, we're gonna just keep going with whatever works at the moment. And right now, defenses want to challenge us to run the ball or dare us to run it and not throw the ball down the field as much. So, we've got James Cook, we've got Ray Davis, we've got a great offensive line. Allen runs the ball. We'll run the ball. We'll run the ball 50% of the time. We'll be middle of the pack in pass rate. Because we think we are going to be able to have success running the ball on you. And that's what they did last year. And I would be stunned if that's not what they did this year. But I do wonder if the league will ever invite these teams, or these coaches will figure out ways to go back to what the Bills had like under Brian Daboll, which was they were passing the ball, 12% more of the time. Something like that than what they're doing right now. And it was more down the field, and there was, slinging the ball around. And again, Josh had 800, 900 more yards in some of those seasons than he did last year. But for now, I don't know if there's really a need for it. 803-0550, the phone number. All that, by the way, because, Mahomes and his numbers have gone down. But again, the difference I want to point out, why even Sims, I'm sure, is putting Josh Allen number 2 and Patrick Mahomes number 4, is Mahomes just isn't giving you the crazy efficiency. He's clutch, and he's making big plays in the big moments, and that is what is keeping him in everybody's, it's what's keeping him living rent-free in everybody's heads. But over the course of these whole games, it just doesn't really look the same. Timeout here. Jeremy coming up at 8. Got Joe Yerdon coming up at 9 o'clock. If you would like to call in about what was the moment you checked out on the Sabres, if you have, feel free. We're talking about that a little bit earlier today with the J.J. Peterka report from the weekend and my worry and others' worries that maybe Alex Tuck isn't going to sign an extension. A lot to get to coming up here on Jeremy and Joe here on WGR. I think there is a real chance, and I have a real worry, that Tuck might be going into the final year of his deal without the really... I don't know how good the chances are of him actually re-upping with the Sabres. I'm worried about it. Him more than Peterka, by a lot. I am worried about Tuck wanting to leave, because I wonder what that starts to look like. If he wants to go, the guy with the emotional tie to the team from before he was even here, is that the first domino? The first real big domino to fall? Paul yesterday said, just in his own guesstimation, in his opinion, that if they are bad again this season, then that could be it for all of them. That is Dahlin, is Tage going to be able to say, I'm willing to keep going here? Now, they're under contract, so that's a little bit different than the Tuck situation, but are we on the verge of firing back up another stage of suffering and another rebuild? Or retool, call it whatever you want. Another flood of talented players that are just, they're done. They've had enough. I'm out. I don't know how far away we are, but when Paul says that, I don't think he's wrong. And if I were trying to figure out, how much more do they have, I think I might agree with him. That I might feel like if they don't do it this season, these guys are going to start filing out one by one. If Alex Tuck is going to want out, and you can rewind back to locker room cleanout day when he did his press conference and he got the layup question of, have you thought about, or what are your thoughts on your contract going into the final year of it when you're eligible to sign on July 1st? And Tuck, who, if he was 100% in and wanted to be here long term and felt like it was a matter of time before he would sign a long-term extension, that's the easiest question in the world. You just answer it with, "Oh, I love the area. I love the guys. I want to be here. I want to be a part of the solution." Like, you could answer that question 7 different ways, and no one will remember the way you answered it. But the way he did, which was more, I don't really want to talk about it right now. Said, "I haven't really thought of it. Haven't really thought about it at all. Haven't spoken to my wife about it," which you would assume a guy would do. Just not dismissive of the question, but felt like, I don't want to get into it. Because why wouldn't a guy that has been a leader on this team, has been one of their best players, has, grown up nearby the area and grown up a Sabre fan, why would he not want to discuss, a future with the Buffalo Sabres? Well, potentially it could be he's not convinced. He's not convinced that this is what's best for his career. And I'm not criticizing Alex Tuch if that is where he ultimately lands. This is a good song for the temperature today. I don't even know about outside, just in these rooms. Finally started cooling off in here. It's the early morning. Something about this room, I just don't know if it doesn't turn on or what, but it is like 80 degrees. And Owen's in a...
I think my room's so small that I come in here in the morning and I heat it up. I think I am the heater in this room or something. Well, I mean, it's hot in here when I get in here.
Listen to the ego on this guy.
But then I am sitting here and it gets hotter as the day goes. So like, it's tough in here right now.
Also, my allergies are going to pick up just looking outside right now at all the pollen and whatever being just floating through the air. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I'm not complaining. We went through the worst May on record. So... not complaining.
Yeah, I'm going to sweat so much playing golf today. It's going to be awesome.
I have a car wash question.
Ooh.
So I go to the car wash yesterday, and there's a car in front of me. And you know how they 3 different gates, right? So there's 3 different gates. So he's in front of me, and he goes through the middle gate. I go through the far right gate. He goes through the gate first. Right? It only lifts one at a time, so he goes through. And then, maybe your car wash has this, maybe you know the exact one I'm talking about. There's a little shed area, garage area, you drive through it, where it's a pre-rinse, kind of, facility, before you get to the actual car wash. And there's 2 doors there. So he goes to the left one because he was in the middle, and I go to the right one because I was in the right. Then when you exit those 2, the line converges on itself, but there is a very rigid, unwritten societal rule, I believe, is that you go every other.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, man.
So, but then I am faced with, I'm right next to this guy, and I'm now, I guess it's my turn to go in front of you, even though I know you were here first. So what's the right thing to do there? You
cannot disrupt the order of things.
Okay, you have to stay with the every other?
Yeah. If it's your turn to go in every other and you got in line after that guy, then that's just
Yeah,
it's not even a matter of like being nice because like I know you were here first. I'll let you go because once you do that, then it could be chaos.
Right? Because then what if the person behind him follows him and then you're stuck and then.
Right. You're saying I would be throwing the whole concept into the air and
creating chaos that we do not need at our car washes.
Okay, so the every other supersedes who got there first.
I think the line you choose, if you choose wrong on the line that you go into,
right,
then that's on you.
This is similar to a very well-liked chicken establishment. When you order at that place and then you have to go every other. Sometimes people are ordering more than you and it's going to take longer to order, but I'm done. I got to go.
Oh, that's a pet peeve of mine. Maybe the person who maybe it depends on the place. If it's like a fast food restaurant, maybe this is different like you're talking about. But if you are going to a coffee establishment and you're going through the drive-thru, cuz maybe this is just me being late sometimes to things and like I'm in a rush and like I'm just trying to get a quick cup of coffee and that's it. The person in front of me, when you pull up to that screen and you see the total is like they've ordered like 9 things, it's like just
go inside.
There should there not just be a rule inside. At a place like that? Like, hey, like a grocery store, 3 items or less.
Express checkout.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a 3 items or less line.
Wow, we got a Larry David segment going here. This is awesome.
This really is. This has been Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Totally agree. I think that people that order like 17 drinks at the drive-thru or like a full,
We're ordering lunch. We're ordering dinner for later. We're gonna put it in the fridge. Just like
please take a hike.
I'm just trying to get a medium cup. Because I got to get somewhere.
Yeah. The drive-thru is meant for fast food. If you want to order a bunch, go inside.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Totally agree.
I agree. All right, good.
Start the petition.
I feel more comfortable with both of these things after talking it out. 803-0550 is the phone number. We took one call earlier. If you want to get in on this Sabres topic that we were tossing around earlier. There's a Darren Dreger tweet about Don Granato that I think is really funny. We can get to that a little bit later on as well. But on the Sabres offseason, and if you've checked out or if you are excited for the offseason because they're trying to do big things, but now we've got Peterka stuff, and maybe Tuck will want to go too. I don't know. There's a lot of emotions that are being jumbled here. Unless you, again, are one of these people that you checked out, and when did you check out? I think this is pretty interesting to get into. So let us know what you think. We got open phone lines at 803-0550. Joe Yerdon's coming up at 9 o'clock, so stay tuned here on WGR.
Good morning. The OKC Thunder win Game 5 of the NBA Finals last night, 120-109 over the Indiana Pacers. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams combined for a big 71 points. Pacers point guard Tyrese Haliburton only put up 4 points last night, despite averaging around 18 points per game so far this playoffs. Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle said that after the game that Haliburton was suffering from a sore right calf throughout the second half of the game, but he should be able to play in Game 6. Game 6 is set for Thursday at 8:30 in Indianapolis. The Florida Panthers could lift the Stanley Cup for the second year in a row tonight with a win over the Edmonton Oilers. The two teams will face off in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final down in Sunrise, Florida at 8 o'clock. You can hear that game on WGR before puck drop starting at 7:30. Coverage of the Stanley Cup Final on WGR is brought to you in part by Window Nation, the perfect fit for your home and wallet, and by Fiegel Car & Joyce, your border attorneys. Although it was brief, Shohei Ohtani finally made his return to the pitcher's mound for the first time since 2023 yesterday. Ohtani underwent Tommy John surgery prior to joining the LA Dodgers and finally made his much-anticipated pitching debut for the team yesterday. He only pitched one inning, though, giving up 2 hits and 1 earned run while facing 5 batters. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet is celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Josh Schmidt for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Yeah, I've always appreciated the way that he approaches the game and the physical tools that he has. And you're right. I think we're all waiting for shoes to start dropping in Buffalo here. And it is incredible. As I speak to you, we're 2 weeks from the NHL draft, and people are expecting fireworks, and people are expecting fireworks from the Vancouver Canucks. So, I mean, Alex Tuch is a proven goal scorer with size and a guy that has a little bit of an edge to his game as well. So, yeah, without a doubt, if there is a path, then I know that the Canucks have been linked to basically the entire top half of the Buffalo Sabres roster. If they're playing let's make a deal with the Buffalo Sabres, absolutely. I think serve them well to be kicking tires and kicking them pretty heavily on a guy like Alex Tuch.
That is from the Sekeres and Price podcast in Vancouver. And they were talking Alex Tuch on their show yesterday. And he's now a trade idea around the league. Good morning, it's Jeremy and Joe. Good morning, Jeremy.
Morning.
It's a beautiful
good
day.
Am I loud and clear here from...
Yeah.
I don't have a fancy name for this place, like Studio Capaccio.
You could just be Studio... It just be Studio White.
Could be.
Studio...
I don't know. Something.
Studio Egg Salad? Studio...
Definitely not that.
Let's name Jeremy's studio. That's the game.
The Fear Bunker.
The Fear Bunker?
Yeah, just
Gene Steratore basement.
Oh, man, that's tough.
Yeah, right. A review. What do they call the replay center?
The replay booth.
The replay
command
booth?
center. The command center.
The command center. There you go. We could just run with that.
Well, good to be with you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. And obviously, we've been talking a lot of, drought stuff today. Has not been the most upbeat morning, maybe because of us talking a lot of hockey.
Right.
Panthers tonight, by the way, game 6. You can listen to that right here on WGR. So they're talking about Tuch there. I liked Bulldog on this yesterday about Tuch and, like, if he wants out, it's different. It's different because of his background and, like, if that guy wants to leave, just turn the lights out. Because I don't know what, like, that's it. I would take that even further to what Paul said yesterday, and they're talking about Tuch there in like Vancouver. It doesn't matter where he ends up. If he isn't around here for the long term, I don't know. I'm gonna feel like he's only the first domino to drop, and that's for the big guns more than even Peterka.
Okay, then Tuch stays. What's different?
What's different is
you have a one carve out for guys that have pictures of themselves at 9 years old in a goat head jersey, and is everything else the same? I got a carve out for one guy, and everybody else is still the same. I would feel, I feel no different about it because he's supposed to be special. So yesterday, that clip there is from Sekeres and Price are their names. They're guys, they do a podcast in Vancouver. And I just, clipped that or whatever, took that clip and retweeted it, got a lot of responses to it. And I don't know if these guys have any sort of sources, Joe, or like reporting on this or anything like that. But the reason I kind of put it out there and put the quotes, he's available and expected to move or something, whatever the line was because that's definitely what the NHL thinks. The NHL thinks he's ready to move. My question to everybody would be this. What would you do if you were Alex Tuch? What would you do? Before you say if he leaves, it's different, what would you do?
If I were Alex Tuch, I would want to go somewhere to try to win a Stanley Cup.
And would that mean that you didn't love the organization and grow up loving the organization and wish that things were different? I mean, a big response I got to that tweet, and a lot of the answers were, well, he would never do that. He won't do it. He's different. He's not Jack Eichel. He's not Sam Reinhart. He's not a guy that's eager and has no ties here. The blood with him is too thick, and he wouldn't do that. And I think he's got one career, and if he does that, I don't know if I want to take too much from it, just because guys leave their childhood teams, guys go play for rivals. It's just, it's a business. He might go play for another team and then in 15 years be back here in the front office. I mean, I think about Michael Pekka. Michael Pekka's departure from the Sabres was not friendly.
He sat out a year.
Yeah. And he's around town. I don't think he's an alumni. I don't know his relationship with the organization right now, but just there are players that want to stay that leave because of business. It's something that happens with the Sabres even before Pegula's ownership. So part of the Tuch conversation is, why should we really think it's any different other than the Sabres were able to kind of sell it as he did want to be here? How much did he really want to? He was traded for.
It would be funny if him being the face of guys that want to be here ends with he never really chose to be here. Because if he got traded here and then at first opportunity to sign, which was years down the road, but at first opportunity to sign, he went elsewhere.
Yeah.
That would be, right, like it is the reason why he would be different, or you could think he could be, would be, all right, this guy is more willing to put up with all of the frustration of losing because he's got an extra layer of meaning to the organization than anybody else would. But that's not for, I will also not assume that is enough to get a guy to, at 30 next year, say, yeah, I'm going to spend the rest of my career here. When he's been close to the cup and has wanted to win the cup. My fear about it is more about what it would mean for the other guys. And like, well, if Alex isn't staying and I'm Tage Thompson or I'm Rasmus Dahlin, like I'm going to start thinking about what they're going to think about that. And like, okay, if he's not staying and JJ's gone and like this thing's unraveling again and maybe I need to get out too.
Well, how many guys control their destiny to do that? And yesterday, Paul said his opinion is if the Sabres kind of go poorly this year, and it goes poorly this year, then that's when Dahlin and Thompson start to make noise. I don't know. Tuch has a year. They could just play him for the year and treat him like James Cook on some level. Like, all right, if you're going to leave, you're going to leave. Maybe they'd want to pay him. Would overpaying, and that's another part of this, overpaying. Would he just get overpaid because the Sabres know they can't lose this battle? And again, like I wonder how Tuch feels about it. Tuch might be a guy again from here who just listens to conversations, talks to people. He's he's connected to the community and all that. If he's talking about it, isn't he feeling pressure to sign? I don't know if we should make it.
Yeah.
The organization should fold up shop if he leaves, because then how does he feel about that? There's a lot of pressure on a guy that doesn't really deserve that.
Right. It also, by the way, is worth pointing out that he's not even eligible to sign yet. It's possible he just does next month. Although I don't know that it sounds like it's heading that direction. It feels more and more like, if there are teams calling about him and there's a question about whether he wants to stay long term, maybe he wants to just see what they do. Right? Like, you got to convince me of the direction of this organization because I'm going to want to win, and I might prefer to do it here, but if I don't like what I see, then why am I going to commit 6 years to you, which is going to be almost the rest of my career, at least the rest of my prime, if I'm not convinced that you're heading in the right direction. And that could be as far down from who the GM is and to what the moves they make this offseason are. And what his teammates think about how much longer they're going to be here. Because I don't even know if those guys would have conversations that honest, but if he knows that the other guys are starting to get fed up and that they might only be a couple of years from trying to hit the ejector seat, then why is he going to sign for 6? That wouldn't make any sense.
All right. It'd be hard for anybody, I think, to, buy in to what they're going to be. That doesn't mean that they're definitely going to be bad for those 6 years. I mean, they could be better. They could be better next year. It's just a matter of, a lot of athletes want to go to a winner. We can't. I guess put it this way: you can't simultaneously pat yourself on the back for why players want to come to the Bills and say, this is a destination, and then be shocked when even hometown guys want to leave to go somewhere that's a destination. Put yourself in who's an NFL player from Buffalo? I mean, Gronk was, okay.
Gronk was from here.
Gronk. I'm thinking of another one where he has the opportunity. Okay, a player is from Boston and dreamed to have played for the Patriots or the New York and the Jets or Miami and the Dolphins, and they're a free agent. I'm going to go play for the Bills because I want to win. And we would probably view that as obviously, yeah, of course you're going to do that. I mean, you might love that franchise over there. You might have grown up rooting for them. Patrick Kane turned down the Sabres, did he not? He had the opportunity to come here. He didn't. I don't know if his level of love for the franchise. I feel like Tuck is in a tough spot with it all. And I almost want to agree with everything about that's would look so bad for them. And the responses to that tweet, that clip there from that podcast in Vancouver, the responses were a lot of, if he leaves, just kind of what you're saying, forget it all. But if he leaves, they would remain. And the reality is also, it would only be folded up because PR looks bad. They've lost better players in worse circumstances.
They have.
They've lost Hall of Famers that didn't believe in the organization.
Yeah.
So
wouldn't it start to signal, though, the start of another we have to light this thing on fire because these guys aren't gonna stick around a lot longer? Because
what does that even look like? How does that look any different from what they are right now?
Well, right now I at least have a few good players that. Is it not wrong to think they still are two? I don't know. You'd give me the number. Is it 2 really good savvy moves away from being in the playoffs? Because what I'm worried about is the whole thing is starting up again with kids and prospects and picks with a new GM, or maybe it's still Adams. I don't even know. But that the few guys that I can count on to be really good players are the ones that I'm going to lose. And that's where they were 5 years ago, right? It was they didn't have a great team. They didn't have an organization that made smart decisions, but what they did have were a couple of really good players that were at the center of it, that maybe you were always a couple of really good smart moves away and you just never did that. And then once they're gone, it's just kind of ground zero. And I don't have any. I do have a fear that they'll be back at kind of a ground zero, type of state of the organization where I'm back to, this is really a future, though, to me that is without just not Tuck, but Dahlin and Thompson and all of these guys hitting the ejector seat the way the last core did. Because if I get to that point, that's where I don't know if people can do it again. That would be another rebuild, is what that would be.
Well, they did finish 6-3-1 in their last 10 games to climb over Philly and Boston. Otherwise, they're probably close to last in the East. So again,
you're saying they're already there.
I just don't know what would be different. What would it look like? You trade Dahlin for what? You're not going to trade him for picks. That would never happen. What are you going to trade? If you were even going to try and do all that and say it's time for a complete rebuild. I mean, we used to make these jokes during the Bills drought. What are you rebuilding?
Mm-hmm.
This team finished 14th in the East. What are you tearing down?
But aren't you? You're getting further away. You're not getting closer.
It's
with
it's
that.
harder to. It's hard to be further away. You can trip up. Like they should accidentally finish in 12th.
Oh, I know.
East,
they
which by the way was a playoff spot last year, of course.
11th in the East. 11th in the
No, it flipped over to the league setting. So
okay.
12th in the East is the Islanders, which was not a playoff spot.
Right.
They fired their GM.
Right.
I would love to know what does a rebuild look like. We knew what it used to look like. You didn't have any top end talent. And the pieces they sold way back when, I mean, that's Vanek and Pominville. Those guys are not Eichels and Reinhardts. They sold middle guys because they thought we don't have enough good players. The roster was a mess. Ryan Miller also. I guess I would, outside of the PR side of it, my question would be, why should we treat Alex Tuch like it's more than a free agent just deciding to leave when he's near 30? That happens to every team in the NHL. And we would be treating it like some sort of death knell just because he liked the franchise.
Right. Well, right. It would be more about, this is a terrible comparison because he is not near this level of player in his sport, but it would feel like when LeBron left home. Right? Like that was more betrayal, but it was, I'm leaving home because I can't win a title here. And because I don't think this organization has it together. And you were right. He was right. But still, like, where did you leave the franchise? Where did he leave the franchise? Again, he's a superstar in his sport. Tuch is not that. But that's my fear, is that the couple of good players here will leave the franchise in a state of being further away than they even are now, which I don't think they were good last year. I don't think they were good the year before that. And I think they've made a lot of the wrong moves. But I do feel like they could be good this year. I think if everyone's talking about Adams wants to have this big offseason. All the insiders that have sources are like, oh, Adams wants to have a big offseason. He's letting everybody know. So see if he does that. But if they do that and they make a couple of moves, like I could get to a spot where I believe by October that they could have a year, that they could push for a playoff spot or make it. But if they lose Tuch and then lose another one of their stars on top of that, I'm not believing for a second they're going to come close. Not even close. Not even with a move around them. Like, it's just, you already are pretty thin on reliable, great players at the top, that if I'm going to start losing them one by one from here over the next couple of seasons, then I do think you could be further away than where you are with your build of your roster, at least.
Well, I mean, there's no disputing that. Like, you could definitely be further away. You could finish in last. I don't even know what. I'm kind of struggling. What would a rebuild look like? How would it look any different? If anybody can actually tell me.
It would be refiring it up.
Traded for what? Picks? It would never happen. Did you do it for players? They traded Middlestat for a player. They traded. They traded for McLeod.
You'll trade him for the next Alex Tuch. You traded Eichel and you got a player back in that deal. You'll trade a guy like that and you'll get a good player back that's not as good as the player you're trading away. That's what you'll do, right?
Right.
That's what it'll look like. And I guess that's where I think this season. It's been Paul's comment yesterday is really in my head for this season, that maybe this season is bigger. They all kind of blend together and all feel the same at the end. But if I want to avoid all of this, just having a good year could really push that off, at least, if not kind of kill it. And if they can do anything this year that is just not 70 points and you're out of it by February, then maybe all of this could go away. But I think that kind of puts the onus on this season being meaningful, like really meaningful, to what's the next couple of seasons look like after it. Because if they had a playoff season when Jack and right before COVID hits, if they had been a playoff team, then does it all fall apart? Maybe everybody gives it a little bit more time because they're just a little bit more willing, but. No, there was no proof. There was no proof that was coming. What they need is proof. And when I say they, I mean the players. They need proof that this thing could actually happen here before they hit the ejector seat. And I think the fans need it too, badly. obviously, if that needs to be said.
Right.
803-0550 is the phone number if you want in on this. Stanley Cup final tonight. I asked Owen and Josh this earlier. Are the Panthers a dynasty if they win tonight?
Were the Lightning?
Were the Lightning? Yes.
Because the Panthers are going for the same accomplishment the Lightning just did. 3 straight finals and 2 wins. Back-to-back. We have back-to-back dynasties?
They don't really... If I think of hockey dynasties, does anybody even mention the Lightning?
Well, if you don't mention the Lightning, why do you mention the Panthers?
All right.
I don't know. The Lightning, I went this far, too. The Lightning, in the series that they lost, took it to 6 games. The Panthers,
Colorado,
in the series
right? Yeah.
Yeah, the Panthers in the series they lost it in 5?
To Vegas?
Yeah.
That only went to 5 games? Against Vegas? Yeah, that might be right. Yeah, against Vegas, they lost in 5. Okay, I guess that was a quicker series than I thought it was.
Better dynasty. No, I know.
Because they made it one more game.
That's right. They played one more game in the finals. The thing about the Panthers is I guess they have a bunch of questions to answer this offseason, but I don't think they're going to go away. I don't think they're even close to going away. I think you could ask if they are a dynasty. I think they will be one. They'll be back. They'll get the Patriots treatment to some degree, which is who cares if they finish in the standings? I think it'd be the 7 seed next year, and people would say like, "Oh, look out!" The Chiefs treatment doesn't matter what the regular season looks like. We know what they look like when they get to this part, and look out! Whoever gets them in the first round would be an underdog. They could be the 8 seed and they'd be favored. You know.
Yeah.
I think the Panthers might start to get that treatment.
Yeah, I mean, they made the finals as an 8 seed 2 years ago.
Yeah.
803-0550 is the phone number if you've got a thought on our Sabres talk conversation. Also, the Red Sox trade this week, they didn't really get into it yesterday in the afternoon show, but I was thinking about trades you hated because of just the guy they traded even more than the move, because the Red Sox did that this week. So a little bit more on that coming up as well. It's the Stanley Cup final tonight at 8 o'clock. You can listen to that game right here on WGR. It's Jeremy and Joe. Joe Yerdon coming up at 9. If Alex Tuck is going to want out, and you can rewind back to locker room cleanout day when he did his press conference and he got the layup question of, have you thought about, or what are your thoughts on your contract going into the final year of it when you're eligible to sign on July 1st? And Tuck, who, if he was 100% in and wanted to be here long term and felt like it was a matter of time before he would sign a long-term extension, that's the easiest question in the world. You just answer it with, "Oh, I love the area. I love the guys. I want to be here. I want to be a part of the solution." Like, you could answer that question 7 different ways and no one will remember the way you answered it. But the way he did, which was more, I don't really want to talk about it right now. Said, I haven't really thought of it. Haven't really thought about it at all. Haven't spoken to my wife about it. Which you would assume a guy would do. Just not dismissive of the question, but felt like, I don't want to get into it. Because why wouldn't a guy that has been a leader on this team, has been one of their best players, has, grown up nearby the area and grown up a Sabre fan, why would he not want to discuss, a future with the Buffalo Sabres? Well, potentially, it could be he's not convinced. He's not convinced that this is what's best for his career. And I'm not criticizing Alex Tuck if that is where he ultimately lands. I think there is a real chance, and I have a real worry that Tuck might be going into the final year of his deal without the really... I don't know how good the chances are of him actually re-upping with the Sabres. I'm worried about it. Him more than Peterka, by a lot. I am worried about Tuck wanting to leave because I wonder what that starts to look like. If he wants to go, the guy with the emotional tie to the team from before he was even here, is that the first domino? The first real big domino to fall? Paul yesterday said, just in his own guesstimation, in his opinion, that if they are bad again this season, then that could be it for all of them. That is Dahlin, is Tage going to be able to say, I'm willing to keep going here? Now, they're under contract, so that's a little bit different than the Tuck situation, but are we on the verge of firing back up another stage of suffering and another rebuild? Or retool, call it whatever you want. Another flood of talented players that are just, they're done. They've had enough. I'm out. I don't know how far away we are, but when Paul says that, I don't think he's wrong. And if I were trying to figure out, how much more do they have, I think I might agree with him. That I might feel like if they don't do it this season, these guys are going to start filing out one by one.
The Thunder take Game 5 of the NBA Finals last night, 120 to 109 over the Indiana Pacers. The Thunder can now win it all on Game 6 on Thursday at 8:30 in Indianapolis. The Florida Panthers can win it all tonight by winning the Stanley Cup for the second year in a row if they win over the Edmonton Oilers in Game 6. Puck drop is at 8 o'clock in Sunrise, Florida. You can hear coverage of the game starting at 7:30 right here on WGR. And coverage of the Stanley Cup Final is brought to you in part by Window Nation, the perfect fit for your home and wallet, and by Fiegel Car and Joyce, your border attorneys. Some other news around the hockey world. Josh Yeo of The Athletic reports that Evgeny Malkin will play his final season for the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. He's set to retire from the NHL at the end of next year, according to Yeo. Malkin has played all 19 seasons in the NHL with the Penguins and has won 3 cups with the team. And although it was brief, Shohei Ohtani finally made his return to the pitcher's mound yesterday. He had his much-awaited pitching debut for the LA Dodgers, only pitching 1 inning, giving up 2 hits, 1 earned run while facing 5 batters. Those are Paddock Chevrolet sports headlines. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership.
I think it's a different answer for each one. For Hendrickson, I think it's been very fair. I think you're talking about a Defensive Player of the Year candidate last year, 17.5 sacks, 2 years in a row. I mean, in terms of production, up there with any pass rusher in the league over the last few years. He's been to 4 straight Pro Bowl threes, the best free agent signing you've ever had. He's showing no signs of slowing down. If anything, weirdly, he's gotten better over the last few years. To get to this point now and say, we really only want to give you a 1-year deal, or we're haggling over guaranteed money, or maybe $2 million per year. It's like, what are you doing? Get it done. Competing franchises would get it done and be happy to do so. So it's fair when you look at that and you say, Bengals, what are you doing? Pull your head out of your butt and let's go.
Joe Goodberry on the Bengals yesterday with Shope and the Bulldog. They're trying to get Trey Hendrickson into the facilities with a contract, but nothing has been done yet. There's Micah Parsons reports, too, that they've been talking, but he's not doing any holdout or anything, at least at the moment. The Bengals, they have a reputation, and they are living up to it this offseason for sure.
He did say that they do some puzzling things. I was listening to that segment, Joe, and he even pointed out how, in some cases, the Bengals inflate the cap hits of certain players on purpose, so they don't have to pay other players. So
is that why they're paying T. Higgins like a $20 million cap hit this year in year one?
Basically, it's kind of the opposite of the Eagles here, where the Eagles are pushing so much money that they can pay more players. And the Bengals are like, oh, no, let's pay a lot right up front. And then we say, like, well, we don't have any cap space. So taking on bigger bills than you have to. To me, there's that story. We had Mike Giannetti on from Spot Track last week. Mm-hmm. And it's the story about how the NFL might want to get circumvention of the cap down, and some of the less cash fluid owners want that. Because you really do have a big disparity where some teams are spending a lot more than other teams. And I guess the Bengals, of course, the reputation and in practice, I found that to be kind of jarring. Like, what? They're actively inflating their cap number on purpose? Like, okay. It's weird. Very weird situation for Cincinnati.
Meanwhile, they're also going through like a stadium thing with the county and the state. Like the lease is expiring, and they're pushing for a new deal, and that's not going well. So, I don't know. They have Joe Burrow, so they'll win at least. Scott in Medina has a thought on our Alex Tuck conversation from last segment on 1 year left in his contract. A couple podcasts, we just played a clip of Vancouver talking about maybe him as a fit with them. Let's get Scott in on it. What's up, Scott?
Good morning, guys. Yeah, my thought is, with the new additions that the Sabres are bringing in with their front office, if they want their fan base to buy into what they're trying to sell, they need a guy like Alex Tuck, which is a huge fan favorite. Good player on the ice, good player, off the ice, it's just, he screams Buffalo. And, if they want the fan base to buy in, they need him to buy in and at least be willing to commit to at least a couple more years and get everybody in, together.
I don't think anybody disputes they need it. What would you do if you were him?
I would honestly stay and to see where it goes because, I'm, excited to see where this goes in regards to the addition to the front office. I mean, after the last couple of years when they fired everybody, it's like, now they're bringing people back because they realize that, hey, we made a mistake. So I think, the future is looking good. So I would stay at least for a couple of years.
I would have to be, if I were him, I would have to be convinced of that. Like, I'd be open to being convinced that they're in the right direction, but I'd have to be convinced. You'd really have to sell me on, like, okay, why am I signing a long-term deal with you? Because Jarmo Kekalainen's the senior advisor? Like, is that what I'm being brought with? Is like that's the reason? I would be skeptical if I were him going into it. I would be open to it, but I would be very skeptical.
One thing about I'm going to make this point a bunch on Peterka and anybody else that kind of might want to move out. Maybe if that's Tuck or whoever it is. This is almost an offshoot, Joe, of middle of the season when I told you that sports fans are not supposed to go through this because you're supposed to get relegated if you're this bad this long, right. Or, like that relegation would send you to a lower division and then you would win games and maybe win your way back in and you'd have fun instead of just kind of being stuck in 14th all the time in the conference. And similar to that, as like this doesn't really happen, a GM missing the playoffs this much still with the team. And right. What would normally happen, and this doesn't mean it has to fail. Don't get me wrong. Like they can make the playoffs next year if they make the right moves. But the normal life cycle of a team is they fire their GM and the new guy comes in and convinces the players, here's what we're going to do. Instead, Kevin Adams, who would have had to convince Dahlin at that meeting last year when he went and talked to Dahlin, and Kevin Adams, who would have had to convince whoever else along the way when they're trading Eichel and Reinhart, and Kevin Adams, who had to convince Devin Levi to sign. He's been here for quite some time. He's on his third coach with the organization. He didn't hire Kruger, but he's on his third coach. So, and can you imagine, is Lindy going to coach past this year?
I would bet against. I'd probably bet against it.
I don't know. If he gets him in the playoffs, that's a nice ride-off in the sunset scenario. If he doesn't, that's even kind of more uncertainty.
Right.
So,
it almost feels like no matter how their season ends, you could see this being the last year.
So the life cycle of a team, this is supposed to, last year or this year, just any franchise, it's supposed to be fresh ideas, new minds, and instead it's the same person has to convince you this time it's going to be different. This time we've got the answers, which is how Adams sounded at the end of last year when he fired Granato and said, I know who's right. I know what we need. I know where we're going. He was bullish about having the ideas and having the answers. And then they had a 13-game losing streak and didn't do anything during it. So, if he comes out of that with the lessons that he learned or whatever, and he tells those to Alex Tuck, I don't know, if you're Tuck, you're like, I bet I've been watching you at this job for a long time. It would feel to me hollow, in not just Buffalo, but any scenario where I've had this guy telling me it's going to get better since the day he brought me in. He traded for Tuck, of course. And
sure, I'm sure he's the phone call when he got told he's coming to the Buffalo Sabres.
And since then, we're on what? How many former Sabres winning cups elsewhere?
Right. Is it 7?
What's the group chat look like? That's all. Where does Tuck want to go? Like, hey, I got close before. I could be a big part of a good team. Maybe he wants to go to Florida.
I mean, doesn't everybody? Wouldn't everybody?
Yeah.
Look how much fun that looks like. Your team's in the playoffs every year. But beyond even just where you're living and the taxes, but the team is good every year. Every single year. And I would want that. He, again, what makes him a little different is also that he has experienced it before. And you would think that if you've had it, you probably miss it a lot compared to, this is not a shot at the fans, but the building is very different than what he would have experienced before in Las Vegas in the first couple of years of the Golden Knights' existence, and then going on a playoff run and what playoff hockey is like. I mean, it's just got to be totally different on every level. And if I was somebody that had been in that, this is why maybe it's going to be a tough job for them to convince him that, no, we're on the right track and you should sign a 5-6 year deal here. It really might just take. They're probably even your points about Adams, and you've got the same guy telling you maybe similar things over the years, and it's just the same person again. I'd have to see it. I'd have to see it for me to even be willing to talk about a deal. I might need to see. All right, yeah, we're in even half the year. It's December and we're in third place. All right, yeah, let's talk. What do you want to do? You want to do $9 million? You want to pay me through the roof? But I got to see it on the ice before I'm willing to lock myself in for the rest of my career.
Well, maybe this entire conversation is a year early. I mean, Tuck can just go ahead and play out his contract this year.
If they're willing to not trade him. Are they going to be afraid of losing him for nothing? How are they going to act in that situation?
They're not. There's no way they're going to trade him.
Even if he says, I'm not willing to talk?
No, not ahead of this year. No, there's no way. The best way to convince him would be to make the playoffs, keep him on the team, try to make the playoffs. And if you don't, the GM maybe gets fired and he leaves. You think
they take it to the very end with him? They would take it to the very end?
Yes, I think. Of Peterka and Tuck, the two guys we've talked about the most this offseason, I would expect Peterka to be traded. I would expect Tuck to not, and he'll stay. And if he's playing out the final year of a contract, maybe they're in a playoff spot in, February, and we're feeling good because he gets all of the things he hoped to get when he got here, which is full building, important games, all that. They make it, and all right, now I can believe in something going in the right direction because it has worked, and we're going to try and build on what we did this past season. But no, trading him would be, I mean, you could do it at the deadline if you're 5 points out, which I'm sure we'll get ready for those shows. But no, trading him ahead of the year, that sounds nuts. He's one of your best players. What are you trading him for? What are you really getting for a final year of a contract, Alex Tuck?
You're getting things you're not going to want. You're getting a late first round pick, a good prospect, and a third liner. And who wants that?
Maybe without one of those, maybe two of those pieces.
Right.
So, I don't think they'll trade him. No way.
803-0550 is the phone number. I've got some trivia to get to.
I'm ready.
Some stadium trivia. Did you watch Matt Beauvais' the Fandemonium piece last night?
I did. I've bookmarked all the places to go for it, yes.
Yep, it's good. I got some stadium-related trivia when we come back on the Bills here in WGR.
At the Wayland fundraiser on Thursday, where we raised a lot of money for the 100 holes. Thanks everybody to everybody out there who came, still getting all the prizes. And the winners, many of the winners have been notified. I'm still working on getting prizes to people. But anyway, so, hanging out, saying hi to a lot of people. Hi, nice to meet you. Listen all the time. Anyway, we met this guy who listens all the time, and Ray, and it was great to meet all these people. He introduces me, sister, blah blah. We're just talking, and topic comes up like, oh, so and so, blah blah blah. She's about your age. She said this to me.
Okay,
this person's about your age, and I immediately thought well, we haven't discussed how old I am, so what's the obvious follow-up question? Oh, how old do you think I am?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which, all right, here comes the answer.
Yeah.
How old do you think I am? She responds, about 50.
Oh.
And I go,
but she didn't say 50.
She said about 50.
About 50.
She's about 50.
Yeah.
And I replied, that's not wrong.
It's not wrong.
That is not that wrong.
But you weren't. You were caught off guard by the number.
I thought the response would be 40s. That's
40s. See, those are the same thing, but one window. Sounds way better than the other.
Right. Yeah. It's a big window. That S is doing work. 40s.
Yeah.
Oh, about 50.
Yeah.
I'm 45.
About 50.
I'll be 46 in 10 days.
It might have been better if she'd even said approaching 50.
Everybody's approaching
because about 50 could be, you're somewhere between 46 and 52.
You're right. About 50 could equal 52.
Right. Someone 7 years older than you, like, you could still do that with Bulldog, right? Like, about 50.
I have no idea how old people are. I don't know.
How old's your dad? 55?
He's
54?
59, I think. I think.
I think he might be in that neighborhood.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
65.
Because for him, I could see someone saying like about 50.
He turned 60 this year.
Yeah.
I remember his 50th birthday party. 60.
See, that is more stunning to me than you being close to 50.
Well,
wait, am I close to 50 or not? I'm 45
about
still.
50, sorry, about 50.
About 50.
Okay, right. See, he's right. We should hold off until he turns 46.
Right, I'm not even in my late 40s yet.
I think actually maybe they might be wrong. If you're 45 still, and the numbers ends 45, you're not about 50 yet.
No, I got.
But the second you get to 46, you're about 50.
47 is late 40s. 46 is mids. I'm still mid.
Final year at the stadium. A lot of memories. Been going through them recently. Check out Matt Beauvais' piece at WKBW. Really good. Last night on the start of the stadium. Trivia. Jeremy, can you give me the 5 quarterbacks, non-Bills, obviously, the 5 quarterbacks who have lost 3 or more times at Highmark Stadium since 2000?
Yes.
One of these I'll be very impressed if you get.
Okay, quarterbacks who have lost 3 times. Tua.
Tua 5 times at Highmark Stadium. He's not the leader.
Dan Marino.
Since 2000.
Oh, sorry. Gotcha. Since 2000. Okay. All right. Drought era quarterbacks that would have lost to the Bills. Brady only lost twice, didn't he?
Correct. Brady is not on this list, which is unbelievable. He doesn't make this answer.
It's kind of unfair that a guy that played that much lost twice.
Uh-huh.
Like I feel like Fitz is an answer. He played for enough teams. He lost as a Jet. Did he lose as a Bengal?
Hold on. I forgot to look at Fitz because I just ruled him out because I crossed off all the Bills, but he
never
might have
played for the Bills.
But he lost. He did lose for he lost for the Jets at Highmark Stadium. He would have lost for Miami? No, he doesn't play that game because Tua did. Remember, he was in for. Okay, so I don't think he's right.
He's not one of your 5 answers. So
no,
okay.
he's not.
I'll strike it from the record. That's fine. Okay, 3 games. Lost 3 games. Boy. This is not supposed to be that hard, is it?
Not that hard. It's not the easiest trivia I've ever done, but it's definitely gettable. He did lose with Miami. So Fitz, I think I have Fitz losing twice at Buffalo.
Is there another Dolphin?
There is another Dolphin.
How about Chad Pennington?
Chad Pennington. So that's interesting because
Jets and Dolphins?
Yes, but he only lost with the Jets.
Okay.
3 times, 2003, 2004, 2006. But he never lost for the Dolphins in Buffalo. But he is correct. Yes.
Oh, okay, it's correct. Pennington. That's 2.
Yes, that's 2. You're still missing the leader with 6 losses at Highmark Stadium.
Okay. Rodgers only has 2. Packers and Jets, right? one time with the Jets, one time with the Packers. That's it?
Does he?
Does he have 3? He lost twice with the Packers.
He lost twice with the Packers.
Okay.
And then
Rodgers.
last year with the Jets. So Rodgers. The Bakari Rambo game. They lose here on Sunday Night Football. Remember the game that Diggs was trying to fight Jair Alexander?
Oh, that's the one I forgot about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then last year's Jets game that the Bills ran away with. So that's 3 for Rodgers.
Okay.
There's another quarterback that, like Rodgers, was very famous, but was more famous for another team, not the divisional team that he played the Bills with.
Ryan Tannehill.
That's not the guy, but he is number 1. He lost to the Bills 6 times at Highmark Stadium. That's the most since 2000 in the last 25 years. 6 losses. I think 5 were with Miami. And then there was the Titans Monday night game.
So then is the only one left, that guy famous with another team?
Yeah, this is the one I would have said I would have been impressed that you would have gotten him. You know who this is, like very clearly. He was a star quarterback, but I don't think he would come right to mind as 3. Even
okay.
Go
Hold
ahead.
on, I've got at least 2 of the losses. No, I got 3.
You do?
Man, Cam Newton.
Cam Newton's right. You know the third one?
So the first one is EJ's first win.
Yep, Stevie Johnson at the end.
Then there's the Justin Bannon game.
Justin Zimmer game.
Justin Zimmer, thank you. Wrong Justin, defensive lineman for the Bills.
Yep.
Was Justin Bannon a fullback? Anyway.
I don't even know who
Justin
Bannon
Zimmer
is.
game.
Yeah, the Justin Zimmer game. Punches the ball out.
And then was there a second one with New England?
There's another Carolina game.
Okay, the other Carolina game, it's not EJ's opener.
No.
He lost another game here with Carolina. Ooh, that one's going to be tough to pull.
Mm-hmm. It's very tough. Tell me if you remember anything about the Bills winning 31-14 against the Panthers in December of 2021. Because remember, Newton went back to Carolina.
Yeah, that's when they beat Atlanta also late in the season.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, it's okay.
So it's late season. Do they maybe have everything clinched? Like, are they even playing for anything at that point?
Yeah.
I remember things about the Atlanta game. Matt Ryan getting a personal foul penalty, thinking he scored a touchdown, and then he didn't, and then it got reviewed, and he was down, so they had second down from the 16 instead of from the 1.
Right. All right, those are the 5, huh?
But the Carolina game, I've got no memory of. But those are the 5, yep. Other quarterbacks that lost twice at Highmark Stadium, Brett Favre, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, and anyone else interesting on this list? Phillip Rivers twice, if you include the playoff game with the Colts.
So Lamar could go to 3 in the opener.
He could.
He could join the list. Mahomes could go to 3. No? No, he's only lost
once. Yeah, no, that's it. Just the one. The Bills could beat him for
he's
a fifth
only
year
been
in a
here
row
like,
regular season.
Well,
yeah, he hasn't played. It is 3 times. They would have had to beat him all 3. So, yeah. Joe Yerdon, when we come back, fire back up our Sabres conversation. Joe from Bleacher Report, his thoughts on Peterka seemingly wanting out and what to do with Tuck. We'll get to it with Joe coming back here on Jeremy and Joe here on WGR. The other thing I had to think of last night about that game and that series, and tell me if this reminds you of anybody in another sport, because I'm sure there are going to be examples of this, but when I watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he is the NBA's MVP. Breakout superstar. He's been a star in the league, but like superstar ascension this year, probably going to win the title, and when they win the title, he's going to win Finals MVP. I think it's pretty rare company, by the way, to win NBA MVP and Finals MVP in the same year. Like, I don't think that often happens. So, if he wins the title, or if he even doesn't, I think more people have gotten to see him this season than any before just being in the finals. I can't watch the guy. I got into this with Sal a couple of weeks ago. Like, I simply have trouble. There was a 3-minute during the game explanation that ESPN was doing with Mike Breen and Doris Burke, and I forget who's the third voice on that broadcast. Is it Richard Jefferson? Might be Richard Jefferson. They're having a discussion about SGA and push-offs and how every shot looks like a push-off, and they showed an example of the big shot he hit in Game 4, which was clearly a push-off. They even said, I think Jefferson said on the broadcast, like, that's a push-off, that's an offensive foul, but here's why they don't call it, and giving you the defense for why they don't call it. I feel like this guy has a cheat code a little bit. He's figured out the rules. I think there is a real chance, and I have a real worry, that Tuck might be going into the final year of his deal without the really... I don't know how good the chances are of him actually re-upping with the Sabres. I'm worried about it. Him more than Peterka, by a lot. I am worried about Tuck wanting to leave, because I wonder what that starts to look like. If he wants to go, the guy with the emotional tie to the team from before he was even here, is that the first domino? The first real big domino to fall? Paul yesterday said, just in his own guesstimation, in his opinion, that if they are bad again this season, then that could be it for all of them. That is Dahlin, is Tage going to be able to say, I'm willing to keep going here? Now, they're under contract, so that's a little bit different than the Tuck situation, but are we on the verge of firing back up another stage of suffering and another rebuild? Or retool, call it whatever you want. Another flood of talented players that are just, they're done. They've had enough. I'm out. I don't know how far away we are, but when Paul says that, I don't think he's wrong. And if I were trying to figure out, how much more do they have, I think I might agree with him. That I might feel like if they don't do it this season, these guys are going to start filing out one by one.
The Oklahoma City Thunder come away with Game 5 last night, winning 120-109 over the Indiana Pacers. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams combined for a whopping 71 points. Pacers point guard Tyrese Halliburton only put up 4 points last night, despite averaging around 18 points per game so far this playoffs. Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle said after the game that Halliburton was suffering from a sore right calf throughout the second half, but he should be able to play in Game 6. Game 6 is set for Thursday at 8:30 in Indianapolis. The Florida Panthers could lift the Stanley Cup for the second season in a row tonight if they win over the Edmonton Oilers. The two teams will face off in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final down in Sunrise, Florida for an 8 o'clock puck drop. You'll be able to hear that game right here on WGR starting at 7:30. Coverage of the Stanley Cup Final on WGR is brought to you by Window Nation, the perfect fit for your home and wallet, and by Fiegel Car & Joyce, your border attorneys. Some other news around the hockey world. Josh Yeo of The Athletic reports that Evgeny Malkin will play his final season in the NHL with the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. Malkin has played 19 seasons in the NHL with the Penguins and has won 3 cups with the team. Although it was brief, Shohei Ohtani made his pitching debut with the LA Dodgers yesterday, making his first appearance on the mound since 2023. Ohtani underwent Tommy John surgery prior to joining the LA Dodgers. He only pitched 1 inning, giving up 2 hits and 1 earned run while facing 5 batters. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Josh Schmidt for WGR Sports Radio 550.
I have said on this podcast and in my radio interviews several times now that the Sabres have indicated that they do not want to trade J.J. Peterka. Their answer has changed. They are at least now listening on it. And I think that's recent. I think it's the reality of the situation. People know Peterka's unhappy, and it's believed he would like to go somewhere else. And I just think that reality is sinking in a bit. I think the Sabres realize they have to at least look into it. And I think in the last little bit, it's gone from we don't want to do it and we're not doing it to we don't want to do it, but we at least have to look into it. I think it's kind of, if you're serious, offer us something serious and we'll look at it.
Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts on J.J. Peterka. We'll talk Peterka, talk the Sabres offseason coming up here with Joe Yerdon. Good morning. It's beautiful out. Could get some thunderstorms a little bit later on in the day, but we'll see. Can't complain after the May we had. Jeremy and Joe joined by Joe Yerdon on the Wester Hotline from Bleacher Report. Morning, Joe. Joe, you're a soccer guy. Should I care about the Club World Cup?
It's something I haven't known about being a thing until, a couple weeks ago, and now that it's going on, I'm like, who cares about this? It's just a FIFA money grab as far as I'm concerned. So, whatever. Hey, if your team wins it, I guess cool, but,
yeah,
it's like a brand new made-up thing, so who cares?
Yeah, there was a 10-0 game yesterday, I believe. Right, Josh Byron beat who?
It was Auckland City. Auckland City.
10-0
to Bayern, yeah.
Great kickoff to your event when you have a game like that.
You got to love those championship teams from, New Zealand, I guess? Yeah, sure. Why not?
Right. Why not get him in there? Well, Joe, Peterka there, the comment from Friedman, this is turning into a drama-filled offseason a little bit. Adams wants to do things. That's the other reporting that we've seen, but there's 2 players to really think about their futures. Let's start with Peterka for you. How have you met all the chatter about him maybe wanting out and him being an RFA, whether he'll be offer sheeted? How do you see the whole Peterka, should you call it a saga right now?
This is it's a lot of smoke coming from areas that are essentially outside the team. You're not going to get a lot of buzz directly or even indirectly out of the Sabres. There used to be some leaks in that ship. There's no leaks anymore. Nobody's publicly or privately talking about any of this kind of stuff. And the stuff about JJ where maybe he doesn't want to be here, any of that kind of stuff. If there's been an easier way to find your way out of Buffalo while Kevin Adams is the GM, the quickest way to do that is to say you don't want to be here anymore. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm certainly not going to deny, what Elliot Friedman's talking about. Elliot's much more clued in on these things, so it's certainly a concern point. The offer sheet talk, we love offer sheet talk. We all love offer sheet talk, right? I think it's a little bit overblown, though, because everybody's like, well, everybody's got more money to spend and all that. Yeah, it's a lot more money to match, too, for teams that have these guys. But it would be very concerning for me that if Peterka says he doesn't want to sign long-term, he doesn't want to do any of that, because you're immediately running into the thing, because you say, like, well, we own your rights, so we can get a deal done here, and, we'll figure it out from there. But there's no point in trying to do that. I mean, if he says he doesn't want to be here, whatever the case, make a deal. Make a deal. Try to. You kind of lose your leverage point if you acknowledge that he says he wants out. So I can understand any silence on the Sabres' part, but if teams are going to be predatory with offer sheets for him, you're just kind of helping Buffalo out at that point. But it's the bigger part of that, the problem for me is the concern that a guy this young that's been in the organization since he was drafted, the moment his ELC runs out, he's like, all right, that's enough. Get me out of here. That's the biggest concern for me.
Joe Yerdon with us on the Western Hotline. The offer sheet part of it, you mentioned about, like, they have the space to match. Would they be spooked by matching, though, for a player in your mind that, if they have it in their heads that, okay, he might not want to be here, or they know he doesn't want to be here, and we're locking him into a long-term contract with that situation, would they just, you think, side towards let's just move on?
I think that creates a really difficult scenario, because if he's signing an offer sheet, it's with the team that he wants to go play for, and you're kind of held in place by what the compensation is that's set by the league based on how much they're going to pay him. And obviously, if they went big enough to make it where it's 4 first-round picks, thanks for the years. We'll see you later. Like that's an easy trade to make, I guess, in that situation. Granted, the Sabres are not in a position to be like, let's just amass draft picks and we'll be good with that. They don't want to be doing that kind of stuff right now. But if you want to beat everybody to the punch and trade him to where he wants to go and get a different price out of him, then I think you try to work that out. But that becomes an awkward game of chicken, because teams aren't supposed to be talking to guys right now, and if this is all coming together on July 1st when you're trying to sign guys and trying to get other things done, that creates a whole different kind of pressure point. So, but if if Adams knows right now that JJ does not want to be here, he doesn't want to be here anymore, you got to be trying to figure that out before July 1st, so that the leverage point doesn't shift against you.
Joe, do you think some say this, as we brought this up during the week, that they should not care about that and start to play a little bit of hardball?
You got to show strength, right? You got to. Adams is a proud guy, and I think challenging him on this kind of thing is something that will get his back up on it, and say, hey, listen, we don't have to do what you want to do here. We hold all the cards. But that's only true. That's only true until they get notified that somebody else signed. He signed a deal somewhere else, and they got the time to match it. It's a little bit of a different world and a different scenario where a guy restricted free agency very much is not in the player's favor until they take control of it. But if Adams wants to play hardball if it comes down to making trades or whatever, absolutely. Try to get what you want out of this, and try to get something done that is going to work more in your favor, other than losing a guy and then only getting draft picks back in return.
Joe Yerdon with us on the Western Hotline, Bleacher Report, Noted Hockey. As we talk about Peterka, what about your worry level about Tuck long term, and whether or not he would sign an extension this summer, and really what you think the Sabres should do if it becomes clear that they wouldn't get a deal done this summer and they'd have to decide whether to go into, a final year with him under contract or not?
Yeah, his situation is really interesting because, he had a phenomenal season. And, that's building ahead towards, him becoming a possible UFA next summer. But, for everything that has been discussed about him since they got him from Vegas, growing up a Sabres fan, wanting to be part of the, success story here and changing the narrative and getting them back to the playoffs and all these things. This is going to be his first time going into unrestricted free agency. Like, this is his chance to really make a splash for cash, because when he signed his contract with Vegas, years ago, that was one, and I talked to Alex about this, during the season. They came to him with an offer where it was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's just get this done. And that could happen this time. If Kevin says, calls him 12:01 on July 1st and says, hey, okay, here's our extension offer. What do you think? And if it's a big enough offer, yeah, I think he'd want to certainly consider doing it. But you get within range of, and if everybody's not sold on like where things are headed and the direction things are going, obviously how things went last season with the losing streak and everything, it's put a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, and everywhere in the city, on the team, it. But if this is something where Alex is like, I don't know, I'm not sold on where we're going with this, then boy, oh boy, you're in a spot where the guy that grew up a fan of the team, grew up outside Syracuse, loves the Sabres, the whole thing, says like, I don't know about this. Boy, that's a tough spot. That's such a tough spot. And, if it's something where it costs a couple extra million a year to make it okay, I'm not sold that Adams and company are going to want to pay that kind of price for a guy that's already under their watch,
Yeah, well, I wonder that more overall about what their spending is going to look like, because they have spent below the cap every year here, and now it is going up to $95 million. So when you say that, like, I'm not sure they'd want to add a couple million more if that's what it took. I'm thinking, well, what are they going to be? They're going to be spending 10 below still going forward, or 8 below, when everyone else is going to get this influx of cash. Really, Joe, I don't believe they would pay everybody, because right now the idea that they're going to have Peterka and Tuck and Byram all on long-term extensions this offseason probably feels like a long shot. But if they did just sit there and pay everybody, they would be up against the cap. But I don't know if that feels likely at all at this moment.
Yeah, and of the guys that are RFA that you got to get there. You mentioned Byram, you mentioned Peterka. There's Ryan McLeod that they've got to figure out what they're going to do with him. And there's Jack Quinn, who couldn't be coming off a worse season to be going into contract talk. So, but obviously, I think most of the trade talk has been circled around Byram for pretty obvious reasons, because you got Owen Power, you've got Erasmus Dahlin. You need another lefty guy out there who wants to be in a power play role, who's not getting it because they have the other two guys. That's a position of abundance that you can trade Byram and really make something happen trade wise to make it, to help the team out in the current run and down the road. But this is, but if you're staring into the mirror and you're looking at it, and if it's true JJ doesn't want to stick around, and Alex has a lot of doubts, and he's not sure if he wants to stick around, that is a far more dire situation, because those are two guys that you're thinking are going to take you into the next 4, 5, 6 years down the road and being huge players for the team. And now you're like, well, for cutting those two out, who's taking those roles? Where are they coming from? Are they coming out of Rochester? Are you going to keep just having a churn of guys that are 18, 19, 20 years old taking over? Or are you going to take some risks, dip into free agency, and maybe pull a veteran out that'll work out for you? But yeah, this is a scary situation for him.
The offseason could get started tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? If the Cup final ends and it kind of opens the door and everybody doing what they want to do here. So, Joe, how about at the Cup final? And Edmonton, it's not good. Is it good when you're going into a elimination of the season game and you're not prepared to name your goalie? Is that a good thing?
In my experience, teams that are doing this kind of stuff in the final or any time in the playoffs, it's a bad sign. That's a real bad sign. And, it kind of takes me back to, I'm sure there's been a more recent situation with this, but it reminds me a little of 97 when, Detroit was knocking Philadelphia around and they kept swapping out Garth Snow and Ron Hextall, and they're just kind of like, well, one of these guys will get hot. And no, man. No, man, that ain't happening. And, it's kind of like an old problem coming home to roost for Edmonton, because Skinner struggled all season and they didn't make a move to help him out, to get a goalie, to do whatever, trade for John Gibson, do for whatever. They didn't do it, and now you're in a spot where it's like, oh, Skinner's, he's been hot, but he's cold again. Okay, well, who's our guy? Oh, Calvin Pickard. All right, bud, you've been around the bend. Go get him. And, it didn't work on home ice, and now we're on the road, and we got to try to win to come back home for a Game 7. Not great. Not a great situation. Mm-hmm. And, McDavid and Draisaitl can do a lot of magic, and we've seen it. But this is asking them to stop the puck from going in against them. That's really hard. And Florida, I've been throwing flowers at their feet all playoffs. They are an incredible machine. They are awesome. I love watching them, and we're watching a special team here. This is 3 straight years in the finals, and we're talking about they're a win away from winning 2 in a row. This is crazy.
Do you think McDavid, especially if they lose tonight and he's held off the score sheet, it'll be 1 goal, 1 assist in the final 3 games, and the goal came when they were down 3-0 in the third? I almost, Joe, have an appreciation for hockey compared to some other sports where I almost feel like McDavid would not get much heat because everyone just knows how good he is. Like there's nothing really to figure out, whereas a superstar, the best player in a sport that hasn't won yet, in any other championship, in football or in basketball, if they're not putting up the numbers, what's the next month going to be talking about that sport? It's going to be that guy not showing up. And I don't know, and do you think I'm wrong? I don't think we're headed for anything like that with McDavid, even if he doesn't kind of come through here statistically.
No, I think the issues with what's happened with the Oilers goaltending is a bigger problem. That, and they've been taking some real bonehead penalties throughout the series. Our old pal Evander Kane's been kind of in that spotlight in this series where he's whether it's malicious or not, there's been some of those plays where it's like, geez, man, what are you doing? But no, I don't think anybody's going to be getting on McDavid here. But I mean, listen, he's going to get the heat because he's the guy. This is just how it goes. But you're talking about going up against a team where Alexander Barkov's on the other side of it, and Barkov was. I know McDavid was incredible in the playoffs last year. That whole Cup final against Florida, anytime he was on the ice with Barkov had him in lockdown. He had him in a straitjacket. McDavid did his damage in the finals last year anytime he wasn't on the ice against them, which is exactly what you have to do to take advantage of that. But this is a full concerted team effort. This is Bennett, this is Marchand, this is all these guys coming together to be like, all right, these guys aren't going to beat us. Just don't take any penalties because they will score. But this Panthers team is just they're nasty. I mean, they're nasty for obvious reasons, but also they're just nasty to deal with. It's really impressive the way that they've been able to handle this Oilers team this year, because this really kind of felt like Pittsburgh, Detroit in 08 and 09, where Detroit got one over on them, and they come back the next year and it's like, wow, Crosby ain't going to lose 2 years in a row, right? And it didn't happen. So because you're thinking, well, McDavid, Draisaitl, they ain't going to lose again, right? And well, here we are. Pittsburgh had Marc-Andre Fleury on their side. Edmonton does not have that kind of action on their side.
Yep. Game 6 tonight, 8 o'clock. You can listen to it right here on WGR. Joe Yerdon. Thanks, Joe, for taking some time out, and we'll talk soon.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
Tonight, by the way, if the one other thing about the finals, so just kind of a weird streak here. If Edmonton loses tonight, it'll be 5 out of the last 6 years that Corey Perry's season has ended in the Stanley Cup final.
Oh, even if they lose the next game, that'll be true too.
That's also true. That's right. Yeah, if they just don't win it. He's got 10 goals in 20 games.
Yeah.
10 goals in 21 games, so.
Quick thing on finals stuff, and this is NBA finals now. I saw this yesterday, and it's one of those very small things that I don't know how big of a point there is here. Hold on, I'm texting Josh something because I wanted to play a song while I say this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A song relating to something that happened in the NBA Finals yesterday.
I texted the group. Go ahead and get that thing ready, Josh, because the story was, did you see earlier in the playoffs, in the finals, when the court didn't say finals anywhere? It's in Oklahoma City, and the court was not special at all. And people noticed, hey, what's the deal here? Put the trophy on the floor, right? The finals in script. It looks like a game from February. And the league kind of silently, okay, yeah, that's not a big deal, but yeah, we'll do that. It was pointed out by Shams Charania, the ESPN senior NBA writer, Shams Charania, that ABC is airing the Oklahoma City Thunder and Pacers starting lineup ahead of Game 5. That was last night. That was the first time starting introductions were broadcast at the finals since when?
Since, Cavs Warriors, Game 7?
Since 2013.
So before that.
We had not seen these starting lineups at the NBA Finals introduced since 2013. Now, listen, on one side, I want to complain when they say the game's going to start at 8 and I'm watching the NHL introduce every player until 8:26. I'm not happy about that. But at the same time, an entire generation, multiple generations of sports fans know the Chicago Bulls theme song because they played it and introduced it every time.
That's right.
We all know this song.
This song, it's probably got a real name. To me, this is just the Bulls intro.
It's called Sirius.
Sirius?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even know. This is the Bulls intro. If I were going to search for it, I would just type in 97 Bulls intro or something.
Yeah, this song, the Alan Parsons Project.
Yeah. Sirius.
And it transcended sports and everything just because it was the Bulls.
Right.
You're telling me we haven't had an NBA team introduced since 2013?
Yeah, that's bad. That's
how?
Tough.
What?
Probably a lot of cool ones along the way.
It's a very small thing, maybe, but I saw that yesterday. I cannot believe it's been 12 years since they're like, at small forward, number, 12 years.
Yeah. Did you also, by the way, you mentioned the NBA Finals logos. So you saw them on the court after they got complaints about it?
Yeah.
Did you know they weren't actually there?
Yeah, they were digitally
they were
put there.
digital.
That's right.
They were digitally put there.
That's right. They did not put them on the court.
Right. So if you were there in Oklahoma City or Indiana, you didn't see them.
Meanwhile, if you look at some of the highlights of when the Lakers are in, there's the Larry O'Brien trophy that's the size of the court at midcourt.
Okay, yeah.
You can't possibly not know you're watching the finals. And in these finals, they'll show a highlight. You're like, what is that from?
It was like a December regular season
November
game.
14th?
Yeah, on a Thursday. Yeah.
So, absolutely crazy. Come on. It's the finals.
Yeah, dress it up a little.
I still reserve the right to complain if they tell me the game's going to start at 8:30 and they do all this after 8:30.
Should the Stanley Cup final also be doing this, just, again, on time?
They have been.
They've been doing it on time?
They've been doing player introductions on the Stanley Cup final. At least they did for Game 1.
I don't know if they've done it since.
I think they did in Game 3. I think they did at least... I think they've done it.
Maybe I've missed that then.
I mean, hockey does it for a lot of games. The Sabres do it for every single game.
Yeah. What about a giant?
They're not always on the ice.
What about a giant cup on the ice, the size of that NBA Finals trophy you were just talking about?
Sure.
Giant cup. Goes across the whole ice.
This is me showing my ability to complain about anything. I complain you start too late. I complain you're not doing enough. I want to have both. Make me commissioner. Start the game 8:15. You start the intros. I get there. I get to see intros. I get to see, I don't know, the atmosphere. It's all pumped up, and then you tip that ball at 8:30.
No, so you can't do that because we need those 15 minutes of hard hitting analysis from Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins. That's why you don't see him. That probably is what's on, isn't it?
What's that?
While the intros are going on, I've probably got Stephen A. and Kendrick Perkins yelling at each other on a desk.
Probably. You know what they should do?
That probably is what's on.
In Indiana for Game 6, they should do intros, and they should introduce the players, and on the court, they should, like from the Jumbotron, shoot down an image of a game of solitaire.
No one made fun of him for it yesterday, I think I saw.
I know. It was probably off limits.
Probably. 803-0550 is the phone number. Game 6 tonight, and I believe the NBA's off for a couple. There's the Stanley Cup tweet. I'll be in the building tonight.
Yeah, but you were in the building game 1.
Okay, right, yeah.
It's a little bit... Did they bring it for Game 1, and then it leaves for Games 2, 3, 4, and 5, and now it's back in for 6?
I think so.
Okay.
Do you know, by the way...
Did it travel? Did it just wait in Edmonton until it got its assignment?
Yeah. The Stanley Cup is following 3 people on Twitter.
Okay.
Only 3 people.
Gordie Howe.
Nope.
Gary Bettman.
Nope.
The Rock.
No. That would be hilarious.
Brendan Shanahan.
No. The NHL account. Yep.
Okay. The Panthers and the Oilers.
The Panthers and Phil Pritchard.
Okay, Phil Pritchard's the guy that carries the cup?
Yes, he's the keeper of the cup. So they're following the Panthers, but not the Oilers. Well, they're the defending champs. That's probably why, right? They follow the defending champs, the guy who keeps the cup, and then the league.
Okay.
It's probably an exact science to it. Anyways, 8:03, Jeremy and Joe. The weather's nice out for now, so could do some stuff outside a little bit later on. Some stadium memories if you want. We were kicking that around a little bit earlier. There's a cool series that Matt Beauvais doing. We talked to him yesterday about that. So anything you want, get in on it here in WGR. Florida tonight, they're looking to win the Stanley Cup for the second year in a row. When are we allowed to call them a dynasty if they win? Are we allowed to call that? Is there any way we're hypothetical we're allowed to call them a dynasty after this season?
I think I have a hot take on this. I think they are.
Yeah?
I think it's so hard.
Are you saying, though, assuming they win? Or you're just saying already?
I'm going to go with it doesn't matter if they win.
Wow.
I think that making 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, winning one, going up against McDavid, and then going through the teams they went through in Tampa, who were the last dynasty we saw, right?
Yeah.
I would argue that this is a dynasty. This team, the way that they're put together, the reputation that they hold in the league, like the way other teams and markets talk about them, I think has a place to hold here. And the way that they just continue to dominate everybody they play, I think that this team should be considered that. That's how I feel about it.
I do think it is a hot take just in that I think you can't just win one.
I know.
To be considered a dynasty. Like, I know what you're saying. Because like what was the name of the Bills 30 for 30? Almost a dynasty.
Right.
I feel like that's kind of how I would feel about Florida a little bit. But 1 versus 0, I get it.
If the Bills had won one of those,
if they had won one and gone to the other 3,
right.
I don't think you could have. I don't think you could have called it a dynasty.
That's tough. I think it's.
I wouldn't have. I mean, I wouldn't have personally.
I think now, especially in the league that is as watered down as it is due to expansion, and with how many teams there are due to expansion, I think being able to dominate and consistently get to where that team has gotten to over these last 3 years is worthy of that label.
I think there is a real chance, and I have a real worry that Tuck might be going into the final year of his deal without the really... I don't know how good the chances are of him actually re-upping with the Sabres. I'm worried about it. Him more than Peterka, by a lot. I am worried about Tuck wanting to leave because I wonder what that starts to look like. If he wants to go, the guy with the emotional tie to the team from before he was even here, is that the first domino? The first real big domino to fall? Paul yesterday said, just in his own guesstimation, in his opinion, that if they are bad again this season, then that could be it for all of them. That is Dahlin, is Tage going to be able to say, I'm willing to keep going here? Now, they're under contract, so that's a little bit different than the Tuck situation, but are we on the verge of firing back up another stage of suffering and another rebuild? Or retool, call it whatever you want. Another flood of talented players that are just, they're done. They've had enough. I'm out. I don't know how far away we are, but when Paul says that, I don't think he's wrong. And if I were trying to figure out, how much more do they have, I think I might agree with him. That I might feel like if they don't do it this season, these guys are going to start filing out one by one.
The show that is upset about Rafi Devers being traded. I don't approve of this.
Gosh darn it. Cat game again. Solitaire. No good.
Oh, wow.
No good.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know we were my bad.
Shots
My
fired.
Bad. What? A guy can't multitask?
I'm just saying. Shots fired.
I can't multitask?
First hour, first things first. Today, I was trying to do a serious thing about Devers.
So was I. I was listening.
Today.
Okay, there's one guy who's made fun of Stephen A. Smith then. Nick Wright did it? That was yesterday?
Yep. Let's place our bets. Who gets the cup first when Florida wins tonight? First off, you think Florida will win? I do.
I do think Florida will win tonight.
And I think Marchand gets the cup first. Does he win the Conn Smythe?
He really might. The Conn Smythe odds going into tonight, I think it's Bennett 1 and it's Marchand 2. Yeah, I think I don't know. Will they want to give it to a guy who's been there? Does that matter at all into who they'll give it to?
The Conn Smythe?
Yeah, the Conn Smythe. No, the cup. The cup, I wouldn't say that. The cup, they could give it to Marchand, even though he just got there. I don't think that matters for that as much. I wonder if it matters for the Conn Smythe, though. Would the Panthers even want that? Like, hey, give it to one of our guys. You know, like, this guy just got here. You know, we've been doing this for 3 years. Like, Bennett, he also leads the playoffs in goals. So it's not like, you know, it's hard to make an argument for him.
Right.
I would say Bennett gets the Conn Smythe. If it's not Marchand, everybody else has already won it. That's the problem, right? You could give it to Bobrovsky first because he's the goalie, but he's already won it. Seth Jones is the other guy who hasn't. Yeah, Marchand's a favorite. Definite favorite to get the cup first.
It'd be great if Edmonton won tonight. You know, talking about McDavid and the pressure on him.
Yeah.
Just looking at his game log. This happened in the series last year, too. He, for lack of a better way to say it, like not trying to get after McDavid or make it his fault, he piled up points in single games and was not there in other games.
Right.
He is about to do that again, maybe. He had 5 points. Let me pull it up again here.
Last year, he had no points in games 6 or 7 and still won the Conn Smythe.
Right. Well, the Conn Smythe is supposed to be for the entire playoffs, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, he still had a big point total. In the first 2 games of this series, he had 5 points.
Yeah.
He has 2 in the last 3 games.
Right.
Like a 0, an assist, and a goal in a 5-2 loss. 25 minutes of ice time. Like,
yeah, he's out there.
He's out there, and last year, how did this go? Like, last year in the playoffs, in the Cup final, it was similar. He scored by game points 1, 2, 4, 4, 0, 0.
Yeah,
8 points in 2 games as they're coming back, and those are 8-1 and 5-3 and 5-1 finals. It's almost kind of when Edmonton can get flying, they should want shootouts. You know,
yeah.
When the scores start to get crooked, I think it is advantage Edmonton, but Florida's just prepared for almost everything they can throw at them. So I'm not here to say it's McDavid's fault. You know, you brought it up with Joe Yerdon. Is the kind of thing that sticks to him. And hockey, it doesn't as much.
No, not at all. If this were the NBA, it would be all anybody would be talking about is him not putting up the numbers as the series is starting to get away from them. Because on the flip end, the best story tonight to me would be McDavid goes nuclear and they send it back to Edmonton.
Yeah,
like
that is without a doubt the best story.
Like he has 2 goals and 3 assists, and they win 5-4. Right, like that's the perfect night, and we're going back to Edmonton for Game 7 because actually, and by the way, Marchand is not second in the odds. It is McDavid still because I think
I guess he would have to do this. If he does this, he's maybe
it.
got a shot at it. Can you imagine if he does that and then they lose in Game 7 and he gets Conn Smythe back-to-back years in losses?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I did misread it. Draisaitl is because he's been scoring. You give it to a losing player in back-to-back seasons? I think the Panthers might riot if that happened. They will not do that under any circumstance this year because they did it last year. That would be my guess. Yeah. But no, like if he could still win it because if he had like a 5-point night and they won tonight and then he did something similar in Game 7, I mean his numbers, the totals for the playoffs are there. So 2 games to kind of win the cup that way, that to me still is the best way this could go. I'm not mad if the Panthers win. I don't hate the Panthers at all, but Edmonton's the best story for sure.
Rich writes in about McDavid's production has to do with home ice and last change, but not totally. Because last year, he let's go to this series. In this series, they're home in Game 5. He has 1 point. That's not home ice.
Right.
In last year's series, he goes Game 6 and 7. They win Game 6 in Edmonton, and he has no points. No points. He scored 4 points in Florida last year in Game 4.
Yeah.
So it's not all home and road. I wouldn't dispute it all. It's a factor. But last year, Game 6, home ice, they forced Game 7. He does not have a point in that game. And they just lost a game in Game 5, and he had 1 point at home. So,
yeah.
I mean, it really is about, I mean, sure, it's about Florida. It's about Barkov. It's about their defensive structure. It's a lot of things. They have some answers to try to keep him in check. And isn't that entirely if we have enough to just, if your team is deep enough, hey, your job is to go shut that line down and we'll win the other matchups. You know, you want to cancel the McDavid matchup and then win everywhere else and take your chances. And the way for Edmonton, of course, to get better and to maybe put it over the top is to build a lineup that teams don't win when they do that.
Right. Like, because Barkov...
Which is easier said than done.
Barkov, for instance, I still have the Conn Smythe odds open. Like, he's not even on the list because he's got 3 points in the finals. He's got 3 assists. But is he not... If McDavid like had no points tonight and they win the cup, couldn't you argue Barkov is like one of the most valuable players in the series?
Oh, for sure.
If he didn't score. He didn't score once, and his line put up very few goals. But you neutralized McDavid and allowed your other lines to win it for you.
If we're like using other sports analogies, what's he doing? He's setting the edge. He's not sacking the quarterback. He's setting the edge, or he's eating the double team.
He's taking away. He's the elite corner that's shutting down the other team's number one receiver.
Yep, and he has no picks, but doesn't matter because he's over there on McDavid Island and he's doing the job.
Right. By the way, one quick follow-up on the logo decal that we talked about, how the NBA Finals logo wasn't on the floor. Adam Silver, I guess, did say this week that the reason they stopped doing it is because the players said that the logo decal was slippery. That's why. That was his explanation for it.
I'm going to go ahead and say that there's, well, whatever. This is one of those spots where you want to say, like, we could put a man on the moon. We can't have a non-slippery logo. We can't do that.
Right. Somehow they got the team logo on the middle.
Yeah.
And the paint, but 803-0550. Extendo Sports, when we come back, we'll get you off to the Northtown Automotive Extra Point Show here on WGR. Florida tonight, they're looking to win the Stanley Cup for the second year in a row. When are we allowed to call them a dynasty if they win? Are we allowed to call that? Is there any way we're hypothetical we're allowed to call them a dynasty after this season?
I think I have a hot take on this. I think they are.
Yeah?
I think it's so hard.
Are you saying, though, assuming they win? Or you're saying already?
I'm going to go with it doesn't matter if they win.
Wow.
I think that making 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, winning one, going up against McDavid, and then going through the teams they went through in Tampa, who were the last dynasty we saw, right?
Yeah.
I would argue that this is a dynasty. This team, the way that they're put together, the reputation that they hold, in the league, like the way other teams and markets talk about them, I think has a place to hold here. And the way that they just continue to dominate everybody they play, I think that this team should be considered that. That's how I feel about it.
I do think it is a hot take, just in that I think you can't just win one.
I know
to be considered a like I know what you're saying, because like what was the name of the Bills 30 for 30? Almost a dynasty,
right?
I feel like that's kind of how I would feel about Florida a little bit. But 1 versus 0, I get it.
If the Bills had won one of those,
if they had won one and gone to the other 3, I don't think you could have. I don't think you could have called it a dynasty.
It's tough. I think it's.
I wouldn't have. I mean, I wouldn't have personally.
I think now, especially in the league that is as watered down as it is due to expansion, and with how many teams there are due to expansion, I think being able to dominate and consistently get to where that team has gotten to over these last 3 years is worthy of that label.
Extendo Sports, Sal's here.
Hi. What's up?
Sal, did you watch the Fandemonium first episode, Matt Bovee, yesterday? I mean, you're in it, so.
Was I in the first episode? I saw the last 10 minutes of the first episode.
I think you were in it for a couple of
I am
clips.
Very much in episode 2.
Okay.
And I've seen that entire episode. And it's really good. Not just because I'm in it. I'm saying because it's about like a lot of us with the memories of the stadium and certain games.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask
really
you.
Come to mind?
They started on like the beginnings of the stadium. They started getting into the 80s a little bit. And I was thinking that's where your first game probably would be.
My first game was 1987 during the strike year. But it wasn't a strike game. It was later in the year. Bills needed to win the last couple games.
Okay.
Go to the stadium in December. They lose to the Patriots in a snow game, essentially, like a snowy type game. And they lose. And that was 87. But I talk, spoiler alert, about, and I've talked about this on the radio before, like my favorite awesome memory was being in the stadium for 51-3, which was a couple years later, 3 years later. So yeah, it's a great series that Matt and everybody at Channel 7 put together for sure.
I'm looking at the YouTube feed right now because I'm with you guys. I'm from home.
You are?
I'm over Sal's shoulder. I think we got a potential bit here.
I think they're the picture-in-picture.
Oh, and can you drop me a little lower, closer to Sal's shoulder, and I can be like the devil or the angel on your shoulder? Like,
I got to see this. I'm going to go to the YouTube page right now to take a look at this.
You are
right
the
now.
devil on his shoulder.
Hey, Sal.
You know what happens, though? I got to wait for this ad to play, first of all, as it opens up. I got 2 ads I got to run first.
Oh, here we go. Jeremy's on the move.
Yeah, we go. Oh, perfect. This is perfect. Look at this.
I see. There he is. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Sal.
How are you? Look at this
Ask
guy.
Joe about. I've got to think of something like, what would the devil say, like to get Joe mad about something? I don't know what it is.
Mad about me, or you could ask me about the Kevin Cole quarterback series where he's Troy Aikman below Jim Kelly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw that. I wonder where Josh Allen's going to finish in Kevin Cole's GOAT series. Like, Josh Allen going to finish top 20? Like, I'm all over the place now. Now I'm on Joe's shoulder.
Yeah, he's very friendly to the like he has to like the guys who play now because Kevin Cole unexpected points. He does every year like top 50 all time, and he updates them. So he just dropped 40 through 36, and like it's 40 Matthew Stafford, 39 Dak Prescott, 38 Troy Aikman, 37 Jim Kelly. So the guys who play now are high. So Allen's going to be top 10, isn't he?
I don't think he'll be top 10. No, I think he'll be between 20 and 35. Really? You can't put him 10. You can't put him 10. Hold on.
Prescott's 39th.
Yeah, Brady, Montana, Mahomes, Favre, Rodgers, Peyton Manning. Marino might be in the mix there.
He's got a lot of data, so Marino's going to be high, I bet.
Elway is possible here for the era he played in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I'm at 9 now.
He's going to put like Johnny Unitas in there.
I don't know. I mean,
no? Otto Graham?
Does Lamar have a case right now? You could make the case. Like, I don't think Allen gets as a top 10 quarterback ever. He might be like 15 to 30. I bet he's 15 to 30 in that neighborhood.
If Allen retired today, is he a Hall of Famer right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like if he had to retire. I feel like they'd treat it differently if he just decided to walk away versus career cut short. Like, oh, he would have done so much more, but let's not even put that out into the universe.
No, I'm just curious because
I know what you're saying, yeah.
He won the MVP this year, and I think that kind of elevated him to that status, right? Like, without that, maybe the answer's a little different right now.
Right, because the accolades would be like one MVP, no Super Bowl appearance. Like, he's below Matt Ryan, who made it to a Super Bowl and also won an MVP, but no one in the world would ever tell you Matt Ryan was better than Josh Allen.
Right,
I think no one would ever try.
I mean, because the pushback always for me, if anybody says, "Well, what about the Super Bowls?" I'm like, "Well, what about Dan Marino?" Yes, I know he went his very first year as a starter, never went back, never won one. So that happens. But yeah, all right. So we got. Let me plug a little bit quick.
Go ahead.
Paul Hamilton right away at the top of the show because he has to. Okay. He has his schedule. I wanted to get him on today. So right at the top of the Extra Point show is Paul Hamilton, and then at the bottom, Brian Cozio rapping on the U.S. Open and some of the Sabre stuff that's going on.
All right, stay tuned with Sal. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6 here on WGR.